The night Ethan Cole's world collapsed, he made himself a promise: never let anyone see him broken again. For 8 months, he kept it. Until the woman standing in that doorway, arms crossed, eyes cutting through every lie he'd perfected, asked him one question he couldn't answer. This is a story about a man who thought isolation was strength, a billionaire who refused to look away, and the moment everything changed. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The check engine light had been on for 40 miles. Ethan Cole gripped the steering wheel tighter, watching it glow orange against the dashboard like a small, persistent accusation. He should have gotten it fixed weeks ago, should have done a lot of things weeks ago, months ago, really. But the gap between should and actually doing had become an ocean he didn't know how to cross anymore. 4 hours into the drive, somewhere between the third gas station coffee and the stretch of highway where cell service cut out completely, Ethan almost turned around. His phone sat in the cup holder, screen dark. 12 missed calls from Marcus over the past week. His best friend since college, Marcus Chen, the kind of guy who remembered your birthday, showed up when you moved apartments, and apparently didn't understand the concept of taking a hint when someone clearly wanted to be left alone. Annual family gathering, the text had said. You're coming, not a request. Ethan had typed and deleted 5 different excuses before finally responding with a thumbs up emoji at 2 in the morning, which was basically a legally binding contract in Marcus's mind. Now, watching the sun dip lower through the windshield, painting the October sky in shades of burnt orange and deepening purple, Ethan wondered what the hell he was doing. He hadn't seen most of these people in over a year. Hadn't wanted to. After everything fell apart, the business, the engagement, the carefully constructed life he'd spent his 20s building, the thought of facing anyone who knew the before version of him felt like volunteering for surgery without anesthesia. They'll ask questions, he thought, changing lanes to pass a semi. They'll want to know how you're doing, what you've been up to, if you're seeing anyone. His jaw clenched. The answers were terrible, surviving, and absolutely not. But he'd smile and say good, and keeping busy, and not really looking right now because that's what you did. You performed the socially acceptable version of yourself until people stopped asking, and you could go home and collapse in private. Ethan had become exceptional at collapsing in private. The GPS announced his exit in half a mile. His stomach twisted. Through the passenger window, the landscape had shifted from highway monotony to something almost aggressively picturesque. Rolling hills, actual farmland, the kind of trees that probably had names like sugar maple and white oak. Marcus's parents had retired out here 5 years ago, bought some renovated colonial on enough land that you couldn't see your neighbors. Paradise, Marcus's mom had called it during the housewarming party Ethan had attended back when he still attended things. He took the exit. The roads narrowed, traded asphalt for gravel in places. His daughter Lily would have loved this drive, would have pointed out every horse, every red barn, asked 17 questions about why cows just stood there and whether they got bored. Ethan's chest tightened thinking about her. She was with her grandmother this weekend, which was good, better. He wasn't exactly father of the year material lately, and the kid was 7, old enough to notice when Dad spent more time staring at nothing than actually engaging with the world. Last week she'd asked him if he was sad. He'd said no. She'd looked at him the way kids do when they know you're lying but don't have the vocabulary to call you on it yet. The GPS said he'd arrived. Ethan slowed, pulling up to a long driveway flanked by 2 stone pillars that definitely hadn't been there during the housewarming. Solar lights traced the path up to a house that looked like it belonged in a magazine spread about authentic New England charm. Wraparound porch, dark shutters, warm light spilling from every window. Cars lined both sides of the driveway. He counted 8, maybe 9. More people than he'd expected. More witnesses to whatever version of himself he was about to trot out. He parked at the end of the line, killed the engine. The check engine light died with it. For a long moment, Ethan just sat there. He could hear music from inside the house, something upbeat and completely at odds with the static in his head. Laughter carried through the evening air, normal people doing normal things, celebrating ordinary joy like it wasn't a miracle. His phone buzzed. Marcus. I see your car. Get your ass inside. Ethan exhaled slowly, grabbed his overnight bag from the back seat and opened the door. The October air hit him immediately. crisp and clean, carrying the smell of wood smoke and something baking. His shoes crunched on gravel as he walked toward the house, each step feeling heavier than the last. The porch stairs creaked under his weight. He could see movement through the windows now. Silhouettes of people in the kitchen, someone gesturing animatedly, heads thrown back in laughter. A kid, probably Marcus's nephew, zoomed past the front window wearing what looked like a superhero cape. Ethan reached for the doorknob. It didn't turn. He tried again. Locked. Before he could knock, the door opened. And that's when his entire plan to smile, deflect, and survive the weekend completely disintegrated. She stood in the doorway like she'd been expecting him, arms folded across a charcoal blazer that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Dark hair pulled back in a way that looked effortless, but definitely wasn't. And eyes, dark brown, almost black in the porch light, that looked at him with the kind of focused attention that made his stomach drop. Vanessa Sinclair, Marcus's younger sister. Ethan's brain stuttered trying to reconcile the woman in front of him with the last time he'd seen her. That would have been, 4 years ago? 5? Some holiday thing where she'd been home from business school, barely said 3 words to anyone, spent most of the evening reading in the corner. She'd been quiet, bookish, easy to overlook. The woman currently blocking his entrance was none of those things. "Ethan," she said. Not a question. "Vanessa." His voice came out rougher than intended. Hi." She didn't move. "Can I—" He gestured vaguely past her, toward the warmth and noise of the house. "Not yet." He blinked. "Excuse me?" "You're not walking in there until you answer something honestly." This was not happening. He'd driven 4 hours, fought through every instinct screaming at him to turn around, and now he was being held hostage on the porch by his best friend's billionaire sister, who apparently moonlighted as a doorway security guard. "Look, when was the last time you admitted you weren't okay?" The question landed like a physical blow. Ethan opened his mouth, closed it, tried to access the autopilot response that had served him so well for months. Nothing came out. Vanessa's expression hadn't changed. She wasn't smiling sympathetically or looking at him with pity. She just waited, like she had all night, like this was a perfectly normal way to greet someone. "I'm fine," he finally managed. "That's not what I asked." He stopped, something in her gaze making the lie stick in his throat. "Why does it matter?" "Because that sentence is exhausting you." It was such a simple observation, delivered so matter-of-factly, that Ethan felt something crack in his chest. I didn't ask what you need." Vanessa shifted her weight slightly, and the movement made him realize she wasn't budging. "I asked when you last admitted you weren't okay, to anyone, including yourself." Ethan stared at her. Behind her, the house continued its cheerful existence. Someone called out, asking if anyone wanted more wine. A timer beeped. The world kept spinning while he stood frozen on a porch, unable to answer a question from a woman who supposedly knew him well enough to see straight through the performance he'd been giving for 8 months. "Why are you doing this?" he asked quietly. Vanessa's expression softened, but only slightly. "Because you're Marcus's best friend. Because I watched my father do exactly what you're doing after my mom died. And because right now you look like a man who's about to walk into a room full of people and pretend he's someone he's not, and I think we're all tired of pretending." The accuracy of it knocked the air from his lungs. "I don't know you," he said, hearing the edge in his own voice. "We've met, maybe 3 times? You don't know anything about me." "You're right," she agreed. "I don't know your favorite color, or what you studied in college, or how you take your coffee, but I know what it looks like when someone's drowning on dry land. And I know you can't remember the last time you admitted you weren't okay, because if you could, you would have said it by now." Ethan felt his hands curl into fists at his sides. She was wrong. She had to be wrong. Because if she wasn't, if she was actually seeing him clearly right now, then every defense he'd built, every carefully maintained wall between himself and the rest of the world was completely transparent, and that was terrifying. "So what?" His voice came out sharper than he intended. "You want me to have some kind of breakdown on your porch? That your idea of a good evening? I want you to stop lying." Vanessa unfolded her arms, and the gesture somehow made her seem less like a barrier and more like a person. Not to me. To yourself. You don't March, she said simply. What? The answer is March. That's when you stopped returning Marcus's calls regularly, when you started giving one-word responses to texts, when you essentially disappeared from everyone who cares about you. She paused. He's worried. They're all worried. I'm dealing with things, Ethan said, and even to his own ears it sounded hollow. By yourself. That's what adults do. No. Vanessa's voice was quiet but absolute. That's what scared people do. The words hit him like a slap. You don't know what you're talking about, he said, but there was no heat behind it anymore, just exhaustion. Then tell me I'm wrong. She took a small step back, giving him space, but not yielding the doorway. Tell me you're handling everything fine. Tell me you sleep well and eat regularly and don't spend most of your day just trying to get through to the next one. Tell me you're actually living instead of just surviving. Ethan couldn't. The silence stretched between them, filled only by the distant sounds of the party inside. Someone laughed, a full, genuine sound that felt like it came from a different universe. I can't fall apart, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. I have a daughter. I have responsibilities. I can't just... Who said anything about falling apart? Vanessa's expression gentled. I'm asking if you're willing to stop holding yourself together with duct tape and denial. Something in his throat felt tight. What if I don't know how to do that? It came out before he could stop it. The truth he hadn't spoken to anyone, hadn't even fully acknowledged to himself. Vanessa studied him for a long moment. Then she stepped aside. Then maybe you start by walking through this door and letting people see you. The actual you, not the version you think they need. Ethan looked past her into the warm light of the house. He could see Marcus in the kitchen now, laughing at something his dad was saying. Could see the spread of food on the dining table, the flowers in the center, the ordinariness of it all. What if they don't like what they see? The question slipped out quiet and small. Then you'll know. Vanessa held his gaze. But I'm guessing you'll be surprised. He wanted to argue, wanted to tell her this was ridiculous, that he was fine, that he didn't need some billionaire entrepreneur he barely knew analyzing him on her parents' porch. But he was so tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of the performance. Tired of waking up every morning and putting on armor that didn't actually protect him from anything. Okay, he said finally. Vanessa nodded once and pushed the door open wider. The warmth from inside rushed out to meet him, along with the smell of roasted garlic, fresh bread, and something sweet baking in the oven. Voices overlapped in conversation. Someone was telling a story that involved dramatic hand gestures. A child shrieked with laughter somewhere deeper in the house. Ethan took a breath and stepped inside. The entry opened into a large living room that flowed into an open kitchen. Exposed beams crossed the ceiling. A fire crackled in a stone fireplace. The furniture looked comfortable and lived in, nothing like the sterile showroom aesthetic he'd expected. Ethan! Marcus appeared from the kitchen like a missile, nearly knocking him over with a hug that lasted several seconds too long to be casual. About time, man. I was about to send a search party. Got held up at the door, Ethan said, shooting a glance at Vanessa, who had already moved past them toward the kitchen with an expression of complete innocence. Yeah, Vi mentioned she wanted to say hi when you arrived. Marcus pulled back, studying Ethan's face with the kind of attention that made him want to look away. You good? There it was, the question. Ethan felt the automatic response forming. Yeah, fine, good. But then he caught sight of Vanessa across the room, watching him with those dark, knowing eyes. Getting there, he said instead. It wasn't much, but it was honest. Marcus's expression shifted, surprise, then something that looked like relief. He squeezed Ethan's shoulder. Come on, Mom's been cooking since Thursday. If we don't start eating soon, she's going to start force-feeding people. The evening unfolded in ways Ethan hadn't expected. Nobody asked about the business. Nobody mentioned his ex-fiancée Claire or made sympathetic faces while asking how he was really doing. Instead, they just included him. Marcus's dad pulled him into a debate about whether the Patriots' defensive line was actually worth the hype this season. Marcus's aunt demanded his opinion on a plot hole in the mystery novel she was reading. The kids recruited him for an intense game of Uno that somehow devolved into a discussion about whether draw four cards were ethically defensible. It was so normal it hurt. Ethan kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for someone to corner him with concerned questions or treat him like broken glass. But it never happened. And through it all, Vanessa moved through the space like water, never quite still, never quite the center of attention. She helped her mom carry dishes from the kitchen, refereed a dispute between two cousins about who got the last piece of garlic bread, sat on the floor with Marcus's 5-year-old niece, braiding the kid's hair, while explaining something about compound interest in terms simple enough that even Ethan found himself listening. She didn't seek him out, didn't hover. But every so often, he'd catch her looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Dinner happened around a table that required 3 leaves and still barely fit everyone. The food was exactly the kind of excessive home cooking that made you understand why people wrote poems about their grandmother's recipes. Pot roast that fell apart if you looked at it wrong. Mashed potatoes with enough butter to horrify a cardiologist. Roasted vegetables that actually tasted like something. Bread so fresh it was still warm. Ethan ate more than he had in weeks. Conversation flowed around him. Stories tumbled over each other. Family legends and inside jokes, and the kind of gentle roasting that only happened when people had known each other forever. Marcus's mom told an extremely unflattering story about Marcus's middle school poetry phase. Someone's husband shared a disastrous camping trip involving a confused bear and a cooler full of steaks. The kids demanded to hear about the time Uncle Marcus allegedly got his head stuck in a banister. "That's classified information," Marcus declared, while everyone else dissolved into laughter. Ethan found himself smiling. Actually smiling, not the practiced version he'd perfected for client meetings and school pickup. "See?" Marcus nudged him. "This isn't so bad, right?" "Jury's still out," Ethan said, but there wasn't any weight behind it. Across the table, Vanessa caught his eye. She didn't smile exactly, but something in her expression shifted. Acknowledgement, maybe. Or approval. After dinner, people scattered into smaller clusters. Some migrated back to the living room. Others helped with dishes. The kids disappeared upstairs with promises that they were absolutely going to bed soon and definitely not building a blanket fort. Ethan found himself in the kitchen with Vanessa and Marcus's mom, Helen, who had refused all offers of help before immediately assigning him dish-drying duty. "Can't have people standing around being useless," she said, handing him a towel. "Bad for morale." Vanessa was already at the sink, sleeves rolled up, working through a stack of plates with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. "Your sister's very—" Ethan searched for the word. "Direct." Helen laughed. "That's one way to put it. Vanessa's never been one for small talk." "Mom," Vanessa said without looking up from the dishes. "What?" "It's true. Even when you were little, you'd just stare at people until they got uncomfortable and told you what was actually going on. That's called being observant. That's called being intimidating, sweetheart." Vanessa handed Ethan a wet plate. Their fingers brushed briefly, and he caught the faint scent of her perfume, something clean and expensive that probably had a French name. "I don't try to intimidate people," she said. "You don't have to try," Ethan muttered, drying the plate with more attention than it required. She shot him a look. "I'll take that as a compliment." "Wasn't meant as one." "I know." Helen glanced between them with barely concealed amusement. "I'll let you two handle this. I need to make sure those kids aren't actually building that fort." She disappeared, leaving Ethan alone with Vanessa in a kitchen that suddenly felt much smaller. They worked in silence for a while. Vanessa washed. Ethan dried. The rhythm of it was almost meditative, pass, dry, stack, simple and repetitive in a way that quieted some of the noise in his head. "Thank you," he said finally. "For what?" "Earlier, at the door." He set down a glass carefully. "You were right. About all of it." Vanessa's hands stilled in the soapy water. "I wasn't trying to ambush you." "I know. She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "My dad almost disappeared after my mom died. I watched him pull away from everything and everyone, and I was too young then to know how to reach him. But I'm not too young anymore." Ethan looked at her, really looked. Saw past the expensive clothes and the reputation and the way she carried herself like someone who'd never encountered a problem she couldn't solve. "How old were you?" he asked quietly. 12. She pulled the drain plug, let the water gurgle away. Cancer, fast. 3 months from diagnosis to funeral. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. She dried her hands on a towel. But you don't forget what it looks like when someone decides to survive instead of live. And you don't forget how badly you wish someone had been able to pull them back. The kitchen felt very quiet. Did he? Ethan asked. Pull back, I mean. Eventually, my grandmother, his mother, basically staged an intervention. Told him he could honor my mom by disappearing or by choosing to stay present for the family she left behind. Not both. Vanessa leaned against the counter. She had this saying, "You don't honor pain by disappearing with it." The words settled in Ethan's chest like stones. I'm not... He stopped, started again. I'm not trying to disappear. Aren't you? He wanted to argue, wanted to list all the ways he was still showing up, still working, still being a dad, still technically participating in his own life. But when was the last time he'd called someone just to talk? When was the last time he'd made plans that weren't strictly necessary? When was the last time he'd done anything that wasn't just checking boxes on the list of basic human functioning? It's easier, he said finally, being alone, not having to explain myself or watch people look at me with pity or let them see you struggling. He nodded. Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. Can I tell you something? Can I stop you? Her mouth quirked. No. Then go ahead. Watching you walk through that door tonight? She held his gaze. That took more courage than anything you think you're protecting by staying isolated. It was just walking inside. It was admitting you needed something, even if you couldn't say it out loud. She pushed off the counter. Most people never get there. They convince themselves that strength means suffering alone, that asking for help is weakness. Isn't it? No. The word was absolute. It's just honest. From the living room came a burst of laughter, Marcus's distinctive bark followed by his dad's deeper chuckle. The house felt alive around them, filled with people who knew each other's worst stories and loved each other anyway. What if I'm not good at this? Ethan asked. The honesty thing. Nobody is. Not at first. Vanessa picked up the stack of dried plates, started putting them away. But you practice. You try. You mess up and try again. Sounds exhausting. More exhausting than what you've been doing? He didn't have an answer for that. They finished cleaning in comfortable silence. When everything was put away and the counters were wiped down, Vanessa pulled 2 beers from the fridge, handed him one without asking. Come on, she said. Where? Porch. The stars are ridiculous out here. He followed her outside, and she was right. The sky looked like someone had spilled diamond dust across black velvet. The kind of view you couldn't get anywhere near a city. They sat on the porch steps. Vanessa pulled her blazer tighter against the October chill. Ethan took a long drink of beer and tried to remember the last time he'd just sat. Without his phone, without a screen, without anything demanding his attention. How long has it been? Vanessa asked. Since everything fell apart. 8 months, give or take. What happened? He could deflect, could give the sanitized version he'd perfected for acquaintances who didn't really want details. But something about the darkness, the quiet, the fact that she'd already seen through every lie he'd told himself, it made the truth feel possible. My business partner embezzled from our company, he said. About $200,000 over the course of a year. I didn't notice because I trusted him, and I'm apparently an idiot. You're not an idiot. I trusted someone who stole from me. That's pretty much the definition. That's called being human. She took a sip of her beer. What happened after you found out? Company collapsed. We couldn't recover from the financial hit. I spent 3 months dealing with lawyers and creditors and trying to figure out how someone I considered a friend could do that. He stared at the label on his beer bottle. My fiancée, ex-fiancée, decided that a guy with a failed business and legal problems wasn't what she signed up for. Called off the engagement 2 weeks before the wedding. Ouch. Yeah, the word felt inadequate. So I've been regrouping. Is that what we're calling it? Despite everything, he almost smiled. What would you call it? Surviving. She looked at him sideways. Which isn't nothing, but it's not the same as living. I've got a kid to think about. Can't exactly fall apart when you're someone's primary parent. Lily, right? 7? He blinked. How did you... Marcus talks about her, says she's smart as hell and has very strong opinions about dinosaurs. That surprised a real smile out of him. She does. Did a whole presentation at school about why T-Rex's arms weren't useless, actually, and her teacher should do more research. I like her already. She's... Ethan's throat tightened. She's the only thing I haven't screwed up. You haven't screwed up being here tonight. The night's not over. Ethan. Vanessa waited until he looked at her. You're allowed to be something other than a cautionary tale or a tragedy. You're allowed to just be a person who had some really terrible things happen and is trying to figure out what comes next. The simplicity of it made his chest ache. What if I don't know what comes next? Then you don't know. That's okay too. They sat in silence, drinking beer and watching the stars. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called out. The night smelled like wood smoke and fallen leaves, and the particular kind of cold that promised winter wasn't far behind. Can I ask you something? Ethan said. Sure. Why do you care? About any of this? About me. We barely know each other. Vanessa was quiet for a long time, long enough that he thought maybe she wasn't going to answer. Because someone cared about my dad when I couldn't, she said finally. Because I know what it looks like when good people convince themselves they don't deserve help. And because, she paused, because I've been where you are. Different circumstances, but the same essential isolation. And I remember how much it hurt. You're a billionaire entrepreneur, he said. You run companies, make decisions that affect thousands of people. How could you possibly... Money doesn't make you immune to loneliness, Ethan. Success doesn't mean you stop being human. She set her beer down. 3 years ago, I had a breakdown. Full on, can't get out of bed, everything feels impossible breakdown. Had to take a leave from my company. Spent 6 weeks at my grandmother's house learning how to be a person again. He stared at her. I had no idea. Nobody did. I'm good at the performance too. She smiled without humor. But it almost killed me. The pretending. The constant pressure to be brilliant and perfect and untouchable. So I learned, the hard way, that the strongest thing you can do is admit when you're not okay. Is that why you blocked the door tonight? I blocked the door because you looked like you were about to walk into a room full of people and put on a mask that would take everything you had left. And I couldn't watch that happen to someone else. The honesty of it knocked something loose in his chest. I don't know how to do this, he said quietly. How to not be okay in front of people. How to ask for help. How to just exist without all the armor. You start small, you show up, you tell one person one true thing. Vanessa stood, brushing off her pants. And then tomorrow, you do it again. And eventually, it gets easier. Does it really? Yes. She held out her hand. Come on, Marcus is probably wondering if we killed each other out here. Ethan took her hand, let her pull him to his feet. Her grip was strong, steady. Vanessa? Yeah? Thank you for not letting me run. She held his gaze. Thank you for not running. They went back inside. The evening continued in warmth and conversation, but something had shifted in Ethan. For the first time in 8 months, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to carry everything alone. The night wore on, filled with laughter and stories, and when he finally went to bed in the guest room, Ethan found himself thinking not about everything he'd lost, but about the unexpected kindness of a woman who'd refused to let him hide. The guest room smelled faintly of lavender and old wood. Ethan lay in the dark, staring at ceiling beams he couldn't actually see, listening to the house settle around him. Footsteps overhead, water running through pipes, the distant murmur of voices as people said their goodnights. He should have been exhausted. 4-hour drive, emotional ambush on the porch, more social interaction in one evening than he'd had in months. But sleep felt impossible. His mind spinning through the conversation with Vanessa like his brain was trying to solve an equation it didn't have all the variables for. You don't honor pain by disappearing with it. His phone glowed on the nightstand. 11:47 p.m. He picked it up, scrolled through messages he'd ignored all week. A client asking about timeline updates, his sister checking if he was still alive, 3 texts from Lily's school about upcoming parent-teacher conferences, and one from Lily herself sent at 8:30, Grandma says hi. She made the cookies with too much sugar again. Miss you, Daddy? Something in his chest cracked, He typed back, "Miss you too, Bug. Save me a cookie. Love you." The response came immediately, which meant she definitely wasn't asleep yet, despite what his mother-in-law, ex-mother-in-law technically, though nobody seemed to know what to call that relationship anymore, had probably promised. 3 cookies. Then, "Are you having fun?" Ethan stared at the question. Was he having fun? He'd spent the evening feeling like his skin was on backwards, being analyzed by a woman who saw through him like glass, confronting truths he'd spent months avoiding. And yet, yeah, Bug, I think I am. Her response was a string of heart emojis that made him smile despite everything. He set the phone down, rolled onto his side. Through the window, he could see stars scattered across the sky like somebody's abandoned art project. The kind of darkness you couldn't find in the city, where light pollution turned the night sky into a washed-out gray. Sleep found him eventually, though his dreams were fragmented and strange. Claire's voice asking him why he couldn't just be better. His former business partner's face dissolving into numbers. Lily asking him if he was sad, over and over, while he stood frozen, unable to answer. When he woke, pale morning light was filtering through the curtains and something smelled like coffee and bacon. Ethan dragged himself out of bed, found his clothes from yesterday, and tried to make himself presentable. The bathroom mirror showed him exactly what he expected. Hair doing whatever it wanted, stubble that had crossed from intentional to accidentally homeless, eyes that looked tired even after sleep. He splashed water on his face, ran wet hands through his hair, and gave up on looking like someone who had his life together. Downstairs, the kitchen was already chaos. Helen stood at the stove, managing what looked like 3 different pans simultaneously while carrying on a conversation with Marcus's dad about whether the forecast was actually reliable. Marcus slouched at the kitchen island, scrolling through his phone with the glazed expression of someone who hadn't had enough coffee yet. 2 kids, the superhero cape kid from last night and a slightly older girl, were engaged in what appeared to be a very serious negotiation about waffle toppings. And Vanessa sat at the far end of the island, wearing jeans and an oversized sweater, reading something on her tablet while nursing a cup of coffee that probably cost more than most people's car payments. She looked up when he entered, and something in her expression shifted. Not quite a smile, but an acknowledgement. "Morning," she said. "Morning." His voice came out rough. "Coffee?" "Cabinet above the pot. Mugs are a disaster in there. Fair warning." He found the mugs. She wasn't kidding. They were stacked with the structural integrity of a drunk Jenga game, and poured himself something that looked strong enough to strip paint. "Sleep okay?" Helen asked, flipping what looked like a pancake the size of a dinner plate. "Yeah, thanks for letting me crash." "Oh, honey, you're always welcome. Marcus talks about you all the time." She shot her son a look. When he's not being mysterious about why his best friend disappeared for half a year. "Mom," Marcus muttered into his coffee. "What?" "I'm just saying, people notice things." Ethan felt his shoulders tense, the familiar urge to deflect rising in his throat. But then he caught Vanessa watching him with those dark, measuring eyes and remembered last night's conversation. You start small. You tell one person one true thing. "I needed some time," he said carefully, "to figure things out." Helen turned from the stove, spatula in hand. "And did you figure things out?" "Working on it." She studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Well, you're here now. That's what matters." She pointed the spatula at him. "You like pancakes?" "Love them." "Good. Sit. Eat. You look like you haven't had a proper breakfast in months." It wasn't a question, so he didn't bother denying it. The next hour passed in the comfortable chaos of a family breakfast. People filtered in and out. Marcus's aunt appeared looking like she'd fought with her hair and lost. Someone's husband stumbled downstairs requesting all the coffee immediately. The kids debated whether chocolate chips counted as a breakfast food with the seriousness of lawyers arguing precedent. Ethan ate pancakes that were probably 70% butter and listened to conversations swirl around him. It felt surreal being here, being included. Nobody treated him like a tragedy or a problem to be fixed. They just let him exist. "So Ethan," Marcus's dad said, settling into the chair across from him. "Marcus says you're in marketing?" "Was. Digital marketing consultation. The company folded earlier this year." "Ah, market stuff?" "Partner stuff, actually." The words came easier than he expected. Turns out trust is important in business partnerships. Marcus's dad made a sympathetic noise. Been there. Had a guy steal clients out from under me back in the 90s. Thought we were friends. He shook his head. Some people confuse opportunity with permission. That's one way to put it. You land on your feet? Ethan hesitated, still figuring that out. Fair enough? Marcus's dad took a long drink of coffee. You know what helped me after the whole betrayal thing? What? Stopped trying to understand it. Spent months trying to figure out how someone could do that, what I missed, what I should have seen. Drove myself crazy. He set his mug down. Finally realized some people are just wired different. Has nothing to do with you. The simplicity of it made Ethan's throat tight. Thanks, he managed. Marcus's dad clapped him on the shoulder and moved on to interrogating the kids about their homework situation, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts and increasingly cold pancakes. He's right, you know. Ethan looked up. Vanessa had shifted closer, bringing her coffee and tablet with her. About what? It having nothing to do with you. The betrayal. She took a sip of coffee. People make choices. Those choices say everything about them and nothing about your worth. Easy to say when you're not the one who got screwed over. You think I haven't been betrayed? Her eyebrows rose. I've had employees steal proprietary information. Board members try to undermine me. A very charming VP who turned out to be embezzling funds and sleeping with half the marketing department. What'd you do? Fired him. Pressed charges. Spent 3 weeks eating ice cream and questioning every hiring decision I'd ever made. She smiled without humor. Then I got up and rebuilt better systems. Not because I'm strong or special, but because the alternative was letting him win. How very billionaire of you. How very human of me, she corrected. Money doesn't make you immune to betrayal, Ethan. It just means you can afford better lawyers. Despite himself, he almost laughed. The breakfast crowd gradually dispersed. Marcus disappeared to help his dad with something in the garage. Helen recruited the kids for a baking project that involved an alarming amount of flour. The house emptied out until it was just Ethan and Vanessa at the kitchen island, the morning sun streaming through windows that probably had a name like Original Wavy Glass in the real estate listing. Want to take a walk? Vanessa asked. Why? Because sitting around overthinking things is your default state, and I'm bored. Flattering. I'm not trying to flatter you. I'm trying to get you outside before you spiral into whatever existential crisis you're working on. She wasn't wrong, which was irritating. Fine, he said. They grabbed jackets from the coat rack by the door. His the same beaten leather he'd been wearing since college. Hers something that looked like it cost more than his monthly grocery budget. Outside, the October morning was crisp and clean, the kind of cold that woke you up better than coffee. Vanessa led him down a path that wound away from the house through what looked like deliberately wild landscaping. Native grasses swayed in the breeze, birds he couldn't name called to each other from the trees. How long have your parents lived here? He asked. 5 years. They sold the house in Boston after my mom died. Too many memories, I think. She stepped over a fallen branch. My grandmother thought they were crazy buying this much land at their age, but Dad loves it. Does all the gardening himself. Says it keeps him grounded. That what happened? After your mom? He found gardening? Among other things. Vanessa's expression went distant. Therapy. A lot of therapy. My grandmother basically moving in for 6 months. Time. It wasn't fast or easy or particularly graceful. They walked in silence for a while. The path opened into a clearing with a pond, small, probably man-made, surrounded by cattails and rocks that looked artfully placed. This is nice, Ethan said. Dad's project last spring wanted somewhere quiet to think. She sat on one of the rocks, patted the space beside her. Come on, you're making me nervous hovering. He sat. The pond reflected the sky in ripples of blue and white. A dragonfly skimmed the surface, its wings catching the light. Can I ask you something? Vanessa said. You're going to anyway. True. She pulled her knees up, wrapped her arms around them. What scared you most? When everything fell apart? The question was so direct it made him flinch. I don't know what you... Ethan. She looked at him. We're past the deflection stage. What scared you most? He stared at the water, watching the dragonfly circle back. That I'd disappoint Lily, he said finally. That she'd grow up and realize her dad was just some guy who couldn't keep his life together. who trusted the wrong people and lost everything and couldn't provide the stability she deserved. You think she cares about stability? She's 7. She doesn't know what she cares about yet. She's 7, which means she cares about whether her dad shows up, whether he's present, whether he sees her. Vanessa's voice was gentle. Kids don't need perfect parents, Ethan. They need real ones. What if real isn't good enough? Then you're setting an impossible standard. She shifted to face him more directly. My dad wasn't perfect after my mom died. He was a mess, forgot to pick me up from school twice, burned dinner so often we basically lived on takeout, cried during random TV commercials. Sounds rough. It was. But you know what I remember most? She paused. That he kept trying. That he showed up even when it was hard. That he let me see him struggle and then watched him figure it out. Her expression softened. That's what taught me resilience, not perfection. Persistence. Ethan felt something loosen in his chest. I'm so tired, he said quietly, of pretending I have everything under control, of being the version of myself that I think people need. Then stop. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. It's just not easy. Vanessa pulled a piece of grass from beside the rock, twisted it between her fingers. You think people can't handle seeing you struggle? Or you think you can't handle them seeing it? The question landed like a punch. Both, he admitted. Okay, so let's test that theory. She stood, brushed off her jeans. Come on. Where are we going? Back to the house. You're going to tell Marcus the truth about how you're actually doing, not the filtered version, the real one. Vanessa. And I'm going to be there, and you're going to see that the world doesn't end when you're honest. This is insane. This is exposure therapy. She held out her hand. Trust me. I barely know you. You trusted someone you knew very well, and that didn't work out so great. Her hand stayed extended. Try trusting someone new. It was possibly the worst logic he'd ever heard. He took her hand anyway. Back at the house, they found Marcus in the living room, apparently in a heated debate with his dad about the correct way to organize a garage. The argument seemed to involve elaborate hand gestures and conflicting philosophies about pegboard placement. Marcus, Vanessa said, can we borrow you? If you're taking his side about the power tools, not about the garage. She looked at Ethan. Go ahead. Marcus's expression shifted, humor draining away as he registered something in Ethan's face. What's going on? Ethan felt his throat close up. Every instinct screamed at him to laugh it off, make a joke, deflect. Vanessa's hand touched his elbow, barely there, but enough. I'm not doing great, he said, and his voice came out rough. Haven't been. For a while. Marcus went very still. The business thing, Ethan continued, and Claire leaving, and just everything. I've been telling people I'm fine because it's easier than explaining that I'm basically just getting through each day, that I feel like I'm failing at everything that matters, that I'm terrified I'm screwing up Lily by being this, he gestured vaguely at himself, mess of a human. The silence that followed felt enormous. Then Marcus crossed the room and pulled him into a hug that knocked the air from his lungs. You absolute idiot, Marcus said, his voice thick. Why didn't you tell me? I don't know. Pride? Shame? Pick your dysfunction. Marcus pulled back, gripping Ethan's shoulders. I've been going crazy trying to figure out if you were mad at me or just busy or not mad. Never mad. Then what? Lost, Ethan said simply. I've been lost, and I didn't know how to ask for directions. Marcus's eyes were suspiciously bright. Okay, well, you're telling me now, so that's something. He looked at Vanessa. Did you? I just asked questions, she said. He did the hard part. Marcus turned back to Ethan. What do you need? Money? Help with Lily? Someone to slash Claire's tires? Despite everything, Ethan laughed. No tire slashing. Your loss. I'm very good at it. I don't need money. He struggled to find the words. I needed to stop pretending. And I needed someone to make it impossible to keep pretending. So my sister cornered you. Aggressively, Ethan confirmed. Vanessa didn't look remotely apologetic. Marcus studied them both, something calculating in his expression. You two are either going to be best friends or kill each other. Potentially both, Vanessa said. Great. Perfect. Love that energy. Marcus slung an arm around Ethan's shoulders. Come on. Dad's making his famous chili for lunch, and you need to eat actual food. Also, you're staying through tomorrow. Not negotiable. I should get back. To what? Your empty apartment and the crushing weight of isolation? Marcus steered him toward the kitchen. Stay. Let us feed you. Let us be annoying and ask questions and remind you that people give a damn. Ethan looked at Vanessa, who shrugged. He's not wrong, she said. Plus, the chili really is exceptional. So he stayed. The rest of the day unfolded in a rhythm he'd almost forgotten existed. Lunch that turned into a 3-hour affair because people kept remembering stories. An impromptu game of touch football in the yard that resulted in Marcus's nephew scoring a touchdown and declaring himself better than the Patriots. More coffee, more conversation, more of the easy inclusion that made Ethan realize how much he'd been starving himself. At some point, he found himself alone with Helen in the kitchen again, supposedly helping prep vegetables for dinner, but mostly just watching her work with the efficiency of someone who'd been feeding people for decades. Vanessa likes you, Helen said casually, decimating a bell pepper with surgical precision. Ethan nearly dropped the tomato he was holding. What? My daughter, she likes you. Helen didn't look up from her cutting board. I can tell. We barely know each other. That why she spent all morning making sure you were okay. She's just... He struggled for words. She's being kind. Vanessa is many things. Kind, occasionally. But she doesn't invest energy in people unless they interest her. Helen pointed the knife at him. Not threateningly, just matter-of-factly. You interest her. I think you're misreading the situation. I've known that girl for 30 years. I'm not misreading anything. She resumed cutting. Just thought you should know. Ethan had no idea what to do with that information, so he focused very intently on tomatoes. Dinner was the same warm chaos as breakfast, except with more people and better wine. Someone's cousin had arrived with her family. Marcus's aunt's husband brought out a guitar, which led to an impromptu concert that ranged from surprisingly good to actively painful. Through it all, Ethan kept catching himself relaxing, actually laughing, participating in conversations without calculating his responses first. Vanessa sat across from him during dinner, mostly quiet but throwing in occasional comments that derailed entire conversations. At one point, she caught him looking and raised an eyebrow in question. He shook his head slightly. Nothing. Her expression said she didn't believe him, but she let it go. After dinner, people scattered again. Some to the living room for a movie, others to the porch for more wine and conversation. The kids launched into what sounded like a very competitive game of hide-and-seek that involved shrieking and furniture being moved. Ethan ended up back on the porch, this time with a sweater that Helen had insisted he borrow because you'll freeze to death in that jacket. The night was colder than yesterday, the stars even brighter. He wasn't alone long. Vanessa emerged from the house carrying 2 mugs of something that smelled like cider and spices. She handed him one without comment, then settled into the chair beside him. You survived day 1, she said. Barely. But you did. He took a sip of the cider. It was perfect, warm and sweet with a bite of cinnamon. Can I ask you something? You keep asking if you can ask things. Just ask. Why are you helping me? Vanessa was quiet for a moment, staring out at the darkness beyond the porch. I told you last night because I've been where you are. Yeah, but... He struggled to articulate it. You run a billion-dollar company. You have your life together. What do you get out of this? Who says I have my life together? You seem pretty put together to me. She laughed, and it sounded genuinely amused. Ethan, I spent last Tuesday crying in my office bathroom because a board meeting went badly. I haven't had a real relationship in 3 years because I apparently intimidate people. I sometimes eat cereal for dinner 3 nights in a row because I'm too tired to cook. She looked at him. Put together as a performance. Same as yours, just better funded. That's hard to imagine. Because you're looking at the surface. Everyone does. She pulled her knees up to her chest, wrapping her arms around them. You want to know what I get out of helping you? Perspective. Reminder that everyone's fighting battles nobody sees. Connection with someone who doesn't want anything from me except honesty. I'm sure plenty of people want honesty from you. They want strategic honesty, calculated truth, the version that serves their agenda. She turned to look at him directly. You're the first person in months who's talked to me like I'm just a person. Not Vanessa Sinclair, CEO, not the billionaire, just Vanessa. He hadn't thought about it that way. Plus, she added, you're interesting when you're not trying to hide. Interesting good or interesting like a car crash? Bit of both. Despite himself, he smiled. They sat in comfortable silence, drinking cider and watching the stars. From inside came laughter and music and the sounds of people enjoying each other's company. Out here, it was just the two of them and the October night. Vanessa? Ethan said. Yeah? Thank you for not letting me run. She reached over, squeezed his hand once. Thank you for not running. When they went back inside, the house was winding down. Kids were being herded toward bed despite their protests. Adults were yawning into their wine glasses. The day was ending the way good days do, slowly, reluctantly, with the weight of contentment. Ethan helped clean up, exchanged goodnights, and climbed the stairs to the guest room for the second time. But this time, when he lay in bed staring at the dark ceiling, his mind wasn't spinning through anxiety and regret. He was thinking about tomorrow, about breakfast and conversation, and the possibility that maybe he didn't have to do this alone. About a woman with dark eyes who saw through him and decided he was worth standing beside anyway. And for the first time in 8 months, when sleep found him, Ethan didn't dream of things falling apart. He dreamed of things beginning to rebuild. Morning arrived with the smell of bacon and the sound of Marcus's niece practicing what might have been a recorder or possibly an instrument of torture. Ethan woke disoriented, forgot for a moment where he was, then remembered. Helen's guest room, third day at the Chen family gathering, somehow still here instead of having fled in the middle of the night like every instinct had suggested. He checked his phone. 7:23 a.m. 3 texts from Lily, all sent last night after he'd fallen asleep. Grandma let me stay up late. We watched the princess movie, the one with the ice. I made a castle out of blocks taller than me. The last message included a photo of Lily standing next to a precarious tower of wooden blocks, grinning like she'd just solved world hunger. Her hair was in lopsided pigtails and she was wearing pajamas that didn't match, and she looked so happy it made his chest hurt. He typed back, "That castle is amazing, Bug. You're an architect now. Very proud." Then, because Vanessa's words from yesterday kept echoing in his head about kids needing real parents instead of perfect ones. Miss you lots. Having a good time with Marcus's family, but wish you were here. The honesty felt strange. Usually he kept things light with Lily, didn't want to burden her with adult emotions. But maybe that was another performance he didn't need to maintain. Her response came through before he'd even set the phone down. "Miss you too, bring me a present?" He smiled. "What kind of present?" "Surprise me." Fair enough. Downstairs, the kitchen was less chaotic than yesterday, but still comfortably full. Helen stood at the stove again, apparently locked in some eternal breakfast-making loop. Marcus's dad read the newspaper with the focused intensity of someone avoiding chores. Two people Ethan vaguely recognized from dinner were debating the merits of different coffee brewing methods with the seriousness of scholars defending dissertations. Vanessa sat at the kitchen island, laptop open, typing something with the kind of speed that suggested either brilliance or frustration. She looked up when he entered, and something in her expression softened. "Coffee's fresh," she said, gesturing toward the pot without stopping her typing. "Fair warning, Jonathan made it, so it's approximately 90% caffeine." "Perfect," Ethan said, pouring himself a mug that proved she wasn't exaggerating. The first sip nearly stripped his esophagus. "Told you," Vanessa said, still typing. He sat down across from her, watching her fingers fly across the keyboard. "Working on a Sunday?" "Email never sleeps." She frowned at whatever she was reading. Board member being difficult about Q4 projections. Thinks we should pivot strategy mid-quarter, which is either genius or catastrophically stupid, depending on factors he definitely hasn't considered. What are you going to do? Respond with data he can't argue with, then ignore him if he keeps pushing. She looked up. The joy of having majority control. I can be diplomatic right up until I'm done being diplomatic. Must be nice. It has its moments. She closed the laptop. Sleep okay? Better than I have in months, actually. Good. She took a sip of her own coffee, made a face. "Jonathan, this is paint thinner." "You're welcome." Jonathan called from across the kitchen without looking up from his debate. Marcus appeared from somewhere, looking rumpled and half awake. Are we doing the thing today? Helen turned from the stove. What thing? The fall festival thing, in town, the one Mom's been talking about for 3 weeks. Oh, that thing. Helen pointed her spatula at various people. Yes, we're going, all of us. It's charming and local, and there's a petting zoo. I'm 34, Marcus said. Why would I want to pet farm animals? Because you're never too old for goats, Marcus. Don't be ridiculous. Ethan caught Vanessa's eye across the table. She was trying not to smile. You're coming too, Helen said, now pointing the spatula at Ethan. Both of you. Vanessa, put the laptop away. Ethan, stop looking like you're planning an escape route. I wasn't. You were. I raised 2 kids. I know the look. She turned back to the stove. We leave in an hour. Eat breakfast, make yourselves presentable, prepare for aggressive small-town charm. An hour later, Ethan found himself crammed into a minivan with Marcus, Vanessa, Marcus's dad, and 2 of the kids from yesterday, the superhero cape enthusiast whose name turned out to be Dylan, and his older sister Emma, who had very strong opinions about everything. Seatbelt, Emma told Dylan with the authority of someone who'd been put in charge and took it seriously. I know, Dylan said, struggling with the buckle. You're doing it wrong. Am not. Are too. You have to. Here. Let me. I can do it myself. Marcus twisted around from the front seat. Dylan, let your sister help or we're leaving you here. You wouldn't. Try me. The seatbelt clicked into place. Dylan glared at Emma, who looked supremely satisfied. Vanessa sat next to Ethan in the back row, scrolling through her phone with the determined focus of someone finishing work before forced fun. He could see her screen reflected in the window, spreadsheets, charts, an email draft that looked incredibly formal. Do you ever actually stop working? He asked quietly. Do you ever actually stop overthinking? She countered without looking up. Fair point. She finished whatever she was typing, sent it, then pocketed her phone. There. Work is done. I'm officially present for goat petting and whatever else passes for entertainment in rural Massachusetts. Your enthusiasm is inspiring. I contain multitudes. The drive took 20 minutes through increasingly picturesque landscape. They passed actual farms with actual cows, a white steepled church that looked like it belonged on a postcard, and approximately 7,000 trees showing off their fall colors like they were auditioning for something. The festival was set up in what looked like the town common, a large open space surrounded by colonial-era buildings that probably had plaques explaining their historical significance. Booths lined the perimeter selling everything from hand-knitted scarves to apple cider to artisanal cheese that cost more per pound than Ethan made in a day. People milled everywhere. Families with strollers, teenagers in clusters pretending not to care, older couples walking slowly, hand in hand. A bluegrass band played on a small stage, the music drifting across the common and mixing with laughter and conversation. Okay, Marcus said as they piled out of the van. Game plan. Kids want the petting zoo. Dad wants to look at antique tools or whatever. Mom's meeting her book club at the craft tent. Everyone else, I'm getting cider and a funnel cake, Vanessa said. Then I'm finding somewhere to sit and people watch. That's the saddest festival plan I've ever heard. I'm grieving my Sunday morning. Marcus looked at Ethan. You're with me. We're getting those apple cider donuts Mom won't stop talking about, then checking out the... Actually, Vanessa interrupted, I'm stealing Ethan. You can get donuts by yourself. Excuse me? You heard me. Go bond with Dad over antique tools. Ethan and I are going to... She paused. Do other things. Marcus looked between them suspiciously. Other things. Legal things, probably. Vanessa, Marcus, I love you, but sometimes you're exhausting. She grabbed Ethan's arm. Come on, before he assigns us a buddy system. She pulled him away before Marcus could protest further, navigating through the crowd with the confidence of someone used to getting where she wanted to go. Did you just kidnap me? Ethan asked. Rescued. I rescued you from Marcus's aggressive friendship. She didn't let go of his arm. He means well, but he hovers. And you looked like you needed an exit. I was fine. You were calculating how long you had to stay before leaving would be rude. She wasn't wrong, which was getting irritating. They wove through the festival, past booths selling hand-carved wooden bowls and organic honey and pottery that looked deliberately imperfect. The smell of kettle corn and grilled sausages and wood smoke hung in the air. Somewhere a child was crying about a lost balloon. The bluegrass band transitioned into something upbeat and vaguely familiar. Vanessa stopped at a cider booth, ordered 2 cups without asking what Ethan wanted, and handed him one. "To surviving family gatherings," she said, raising her cup. "That's dark. That's realistic." She took a long drink. "God, that's good. Why does cider taste better at festivals?" Probably the atmosphere of forced cheerfulness. Cynic. Realist. They found a bench near the edge of the common, far enough from the main crowd to hear themselves think. Vanessa stretched out her legs, crossing them at the ankle, and watched people pass with the focused attention of someone studying a painting. "You do this a lot?" Ethan asked. "What?" "People watch." "All the time. You learn things." She pointed with her cup toward a couple arguing quietly near the craft tent. "See them? Together at least 5 years, probably married, having the same fight they've had 100 times about how much money she spends versus how much he criticizes her spending. You can tell all that from 20 feet away?" "Body language. She's got shopping bags and defensive posture. He keeps looking at his watch, classic pattern." She shifted her focus. "Over there, young dad with the toddler, first kid, completely terrified he's doing everything wrong." Ethan followed her gaze to a man in his late 20s hovering anxiously over a small girl inspecting pumpkins. "How do you know?" "Because he's watching her like she's made of glass and checking his phone every 30 seconds, probably looking up whether toddlers can eat pumpkin seeds or something equally paranoid." Vanessa smiled. "I remember when Marcus was like that with his nephew. Wouldn't let the kid touch anything without sanitizing it first." "What about me?" Ethan asked. "What do you see?" She turned to look at him, really look, with that same unsettling directness from the porch 2 nights ago. "You want the truth? Would you give me anything else?" "Fair point." She took another sip of cider. "I see someone who's exhausted from holding everything together, who came here expecting judgment and found acceptance instead, and now doesn't know what to do with it. Someone who's starting to realize that maybe isolation wasn't protection, it was just—" She paused, choosing words carefully. "A slower way to disappear." The accuracy of it made his stomach clench. "You're good at this," he said quietly. "Practice. Lots of practice reading people who want things from me." She shifted to face him more fully. "But with you, it's different." "How?" "Because you don't want anything. You're just—" She gestured vaguely. "Here. Honest. Or trying to be, anyway." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the festival continue around them. A kid ran past, chasing a dog. The bluegrass band launched into something that sounded vaguely like a murder ballad. Someone nearby was arguing about the correct ratio of cinnamon to sugar. "Can I tell you something?" Ethan said. "You keep asking permission for things you're going to do anyway. This weekend has been—" He struggled to find the right word. "Strange. Good strange, but strange. And I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for someone to say the wrong thing, or look at me the wrong way, or for me to mess this up somehow." "That sounds exhausting." "It is." Vanessa studied him. "What if the shoe doesn't drop?" "Then I don't know what I'm doing." "Nobody does, Ethan. That's the secret everyone's too proud to admit." She finished her cider, crushed the cup slowly between her hands. "You think I have everything figured out. I'm making it up as I go. Everyone is. You run a billion-dollar company, which just means I'm making up really expensive things." She tossed the cup toward a nearby trash can, made it without looking. "Point is, you're not uniquely lost. You're just human, and maybe—" She paused. "Maybe that's enough." Before Ethan could respond, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, expecting another message from Lily. Instead, it was a number he didn't recognize with a Massachusetts area code. The voicemail notification appeared. He almost ignored it, then something made him listen. The voice was professional, female, slightly apologetic. A recruiter from a marketing firm in Boston. They'd gotten his name from a mutual contact, were impressed with his background, wanted to discuss a potential position. Could he call back to schedule a conversation? Ethan stared at the phone. "Everything okay?" Vanessa asked. "Job offer." "Maybe. A recruiter wanting to talk anyway." He played the message again, like it might say something different the second time. I don't understand. I haven't applied anywhere in months. Someone recommended you. Who would? Then it hit him. Marcus. Probably. He's been worried about you. She watched his face carefully. How do you feel about it? I don't know. The honesty felt strange. Terrified? Hopeful? Both? That sounds about right. He pocketed the phone, tried to focus back on the festival, but his mind was spinning. A job. A real job at a real firm, not freelance scraps or half-hearted applications sent at 2 a.m. The possibility of stability, structure, something that looked like moving forward instead of just surviving, and the terror that came with it. What if he failed again? What if he couldn't handle it? What if... Stop, Vanessa said. He blinked. What? Spiraling. I can literally see you spiraling. She stood, held out her hand. Come on, you need a distraction before your brain eats itself. Where are we going? You'll see. She pulled him through the festival to the petting zoo, which turned out to be less a zoo and more a fenced area containing goats, sheep, a couple of extremely patient ponies, and what might have been a miniature donkey or a very confused dog. This is your solution? Ethan said. Farm animals? Animals don't judge. Animals don't care about your employment history or your failed relationships. Animals just want snacks and minimal effort petting. She grabbed a cup of feed pellets from the attendant, dumped half into Ethan's hand. Now, feed something and stop overthinking. A goat approached immediately, eyeing his hand with the intensity of a predator spotting prey. That goat looks aggressive, Ethan said. That goat looks hungry. Big difference. Vanessa held out her own hand, and a smaller goat trotted over, eating delicately from her palm. See? Peaceful. Ethan extended his hand. The aggressive goat attacked the pellets like it hadn't eaten in weeks, its rough tongue scraping his palm. Okay, wow, that's very enthusiastic. He likes you. He likes food. I'm just the delivery system. Same thing, really. Despite himself, Ethan laughed. The goat finished the pellets and head-butted his hand, clearly demanding more. He grabbed another handful from Vanessa's cup, and the goat's tail wagged with what looked like genuine joy. See? Vanessa said. Wasn't that better than panicking about a job offer? Marginally. I'll take it. They spent 20 minutes feeding various animals and watching other people do the same. Dylan and Emma showed up at some point, Dylan immediately declaring himself the Goat King, while Emma lectured everyone on proper animal handling techniques she'd apparently learned from a YouTube video. Marcus appeared carrying a bag of apple cider donuts and wearing an expression that suggested he'd witnessed something either very funny or mildly disturbing. You two look domestic, he said. We're feeding goats, Vanessa said. That's not domestic, that's agricultural. Same energy. He offered the bag to Ethan. Donut? Ethan took one. It was still warm, covered in cinnamon sugar, and tasted exactly like fall should taste. Okay, that's incredible, he admitted. Told you. Mom knows her donuts. Marcus looked between them again, that calculating expression back. So what's happening here? Nothing's happening, Vanessa said. You've been hanging out with my best friend all morning. I'm being friendly. You wanted me to be friendly. Now you're suspicious of friendly? I'm suspicious of you specifically being friendly. You're not a friendly person. I'm extremely friendly. You once told a Fortune 500 CEO that his presentation was aggressively mediocre. That was friendly. I could have said what I really thought. Ethan watched the sibling dynamic play out with the familiarity of people who'd been arguing the same way for decades. It reminded him of conversations with his own sister before she'd moved to Seattle, and their relationship had faded to holiday phone calls and occasional texts. You should call her back, Marcus said suddenly, nodding at Ethan's phone. The recruiter. How did you... Because I'm the one who sent them your information. Cassie Reynolds, she runs talent acquisition at Morrison & Park. Good firm, growing. They need someone who actually understands digital strategy instead of just buzzwords. He took a donut from the bag. I might have talked you up a bit. Marcus, before you get weird about it, I didn't do it because I feel sorry for you. I did it because you're good at what you do, and they need good people. And why the hell shouldn't I connect those dots? He bit into the donut. Call her back. Worst that happens is it doesn't work out. Best case, you get a job that doesn't make you want to fake your own death. Vanessa was watching Ethan carefully. He's right, you know. About which part? All of it. but especially the part about you being good at what you do. She dusted sugar off her hands. You spend so much time thinking about what you lost. You forget what you still have. Skills, experience, the ability to analyze markets and create strategies that actually work. None of that disappeared just because one person betrayed you. What if I fail again? Then you fail. She said it matter-of-factly, like she was commenting on the weather. Failure isn't death, Ethan. It's just information about what didn't work. Easy for a billionaire to say? Easy for a human being with perspective to say, she corrected. I failed plenty, lost contracts, hired wrong, made strategic decisions that cost millions. The difference is I don't let failure define me. I let it teach me. Marcus's phone rang. He glanced at it, made a face. It's Mom, probably wondering where everyone went. He answered. Yeah, we're at the petting zoo. Uh-huh. No, I don't know where Dad is. Have you tried? He wandered off, still talking. Ethan and Vanessa were left standing in front of the goat pen, surrounded by the noise of the festival and the smell of animals and fried food. What if this doesn't last? Ethan said quietly. This? He gestured vaguely at everything around them, feeling like maybe things could be okay again. What if I go home and fall back into the same patterns? Vanessa turned to look at him fully. Then you don't go back to the same patterns. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. It's just not easy. She stepped closer, and he could smell her perfume again, something clean and expensive cutting through the festival smells. Healing isn't a straight line, Ethan. Bad days don't erase progress. You're going to have mornings where getting out of bed feels impossible. You're going to have moments where the loneliness hits you so hard you can't breathe. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. How do you know all this? Because I've been there. Because my therapist is very good and very expensive and drilled it into my head until I believed it. She smiled slightly, and because I watched my dad claw his way back from grief, and it wasn't pretty or linear or anything like the movies. It was messy and slow and full of setbacks. But he did it, and so can you. Something in Ethan's chest loosened. I don't know how to thank you, he said, for this weekend, for, he struggled to find words, for seeing me, the actual me, not the version I've been pretending to be. You don't have to thank me. Her voice was soft. Just promise me something. What? Don't disappear again. Not from Marcus, not from yourself. When it gets hard, and it will get hard, reach out, call someone, ask for help. Don't default back to isolation. I promise. Say it like you mean it. He met her eyes, those dark, intelligent eyes that had seen through him from the first moment. I promise. I won't disappear. She nodded once, satisfied. Marcus returned, looking harassed. Okay. Mom wants everyone back at the van in 20 minutes. Something about needing to get home to start dinner, which is insane because it's barely noon, but apparently that's how pot roast works. God, I love your mom's pot roast, Ethan said. Everyone loves Mom's pot roast. It's objectively perfect. Marcus looked at Vanessa. You coming back with us or staying to terrorize the locals? I'll terrorize from home, thanks. They collected Dylan and Emma from the goat pen, Dylan protesting loudly that he wasn't done being Goat King, and made their way back through the festival. The band was playing something slower now, something that sounded like longing set to banjos. The crowd had thickened, people carrying bags of purchases and children sticky with cotton candy. Ethan found himself walking beside Vanessa, their shoulders occasionally brushing in the press of people. She didn't move away. Neither did he. Back at the house, the afternoon unfolded in comfortable chaos. Pot roast preparations that involved Helen organizing people like a general commanding troops. Dylan and Emma's parents arriving and triggering a whole new round of introductions and catching up. Someone producing a deck of cards and starting a vicious game of hearts that involved accusations of cheating and strategic alliances. Ethan played a few hands, lost spectacularly, then excused himself to the porch with his phone and the recruiter's number. He stared at it for a long moment. Then, before he could overthink it, he called. Cassie Reynolds answered on the second ring, sounding professional and friendly in the way recruiters were trained to sound. She knew Marcus, had heard great things about Ethan's work, wanted to set up a meeting to discuss a position that might be a good fit. I have to be honest, Ethan said, gripping the phone tighter. I haven't worked full-time in 8 months. My last company collapsed after my partner embezzled funds. My resume probably looks like a disaster. There was a pause. Marcus mentioned some of that, Cassie said carefully. Can I be honest with you? Please. We're not looking for someone with a perfect track record. We're looking for someone who understands digital strategy, can manage complex client relationships, and won't fall apart when things get complicated. Based on everything Marcus told me, and based on this conversation, you sound like someone who's honest about challenges instead of hiding from them. That's actually valuable. Ethan felt something shift in his chest. When would you want to meet? He asked. They scheduled a call for Tuesday afternoon. When Ethan hung up, he sat staring at the phone for a long moment, trying to process what had just happened. The door opened. Vanessa stepped out, carrying 2 glasses of wine. Eavesdropping? He asked. Absolutely. She handed him a glass, sat down beside him. How'd it go? I have a call Tuesday. Could be nothing. Could be something. It's something, she said with certainty. Even if this specific job doesn't work out, you took the step. That matters. They sat in silence, drinking wine and watching the sun start its slow descent toward the horizon. The October light turned everything golden, made the trees look like they were on fire. I should probably head back tomorrow, Ethan said. Pick up Lily, get back to real life. Probably. But I don't want to. Vanessa looked at him. Then stay another day. I can't just... Why not? What's waiting for you at home that can't wait one more day? He tried to think of a reason and came up empty. Okay, he said. One more day. She smiled, and it was the first fully unguarded smile he'd seen from her. It changed her whole face, made her look younger and less like a CEO and more like just Vanessa. Good, she said, because Mom's planning a big goodbye breakfast tomorrow, and if you miss it, she'll never forgive you. They sat until the wine was gone and the sky had shifted from gold to pink to deep purple, until Helen called them in for dinner and the house filled with warmth and noise again, until Ethan realized he'd gone an entire day without feeling like he was drowning. And when he climbed the stairs to the guest room that night, he found a note slipped under his door in handwriting he recognized as Vanessa's. Bad days don't erase progress. Remember that. He folded it carefully and put it in his wallet, next to the photo of Lily he carried everywhere. Then he slept better than he had in months. The drive home felt longer than the drive there, even though the distance was exactly the same. Ethan left the Chen house Monday morning after a breakfast that Helen had somehow turned into a production involving 3 types of eggs, homemade biscuits, and what she called real maple syrup, not that corn syrup garbage. Marcus had hugged him hard enough to crack ribs, made him promise to call after the interview, then threatened bodily harm if Ethan disappeared again. Helen had packed him enough leftover food to survive a nuclear winter. Marcus's dad had shaken his hand and said simply, "Good to see you smiling again, son." And Vanessa had walked him to his car, hands in her pockets, looking like she wanted to say something but wasn't sure how. "Thank you," Ethan had said, because it needed to be said again. "For everything. For not letting me hide." "You're welcome." She'd pulled something from her pocket, a business card, plain white with just her name and a phone number. "That's my direct line. Not the assistant, not the office. Me. Use it if you need to." "Vanessa, I can't just..." "Yes, you can. That's the point." She'd pressed the card into his hand. "Bad days are going to happen, Ethan. When they do, don't go silent. Call Marcus, call me, call someone. Just don't disappear." He'd pocketed the card, feeling the weight of what she was offering. "I won't." "Promise?" "Promise." She'd smiled then, that same unguarded smile from the porch. "Good. Now get out of here before Mom tries to pack more food into your car." Now, 3 hours into the drive, Ethan kept glancing at his phone sitting in the cup holder. He'd texted Lily that he was on his way, gotten back a string of excited emojis, and a demand to know about the surprise present. He'd stopped at a rest area and bought her a stuffed goat from the gift shop, which was either perfect or deeply weird. Hard to tell with 7-year-olds. The check engine light was still on. He should really get that fixed. His phone rang. Marcus. Ethan answered on Bluetooth. "Miss me already?" "Obviously. Also, Mom wanted me to make sure you didn't forget the Tupperware in your trunk. She needs those back. I'll wash them and mail them. She'll send detailed instructions on proper washing technique. Fair warning." A pause. You doing okay? Yeah, actually, yeah. Good. Because Vanessa's been weird since you left. Ethan's grip tightened on the wheel. Weird how? Quiet, thoughtful. She keeps looking at her phone like she's expecting a call. Marcus's tone shifted, got that calculating edge to it. You two were pretty chummy this weekend. We talked. She helped me through some stuff. That's it. Uh-huh. Marcus, me what? I'm just saying, I've never seen her invest that much energy in someone she just met. Usually, she's all business. But with you, she was... He paused, searching for words. Different. Present. She was being kind. Vanessa's never just kind. She's strategic, intentional. Everything she does has a reason. Another pause. I think she likes you. As a person. As her brother's friend who needed help. Keep telling yourself that. Marcus laughed. Anyway, call me after the interview tomorrow. And Ethan? For real, you did good this weekend. Coming here, opening up, not running away when things got uncomfortable. That took guts. After they hung up, Ethan drove in silence, Marcus's words circling his head. He'd been so focused on his own survival, his own problems, that he hadn't really considered what this weekend might have meant from Vanessa's perspective. She'd given him her direct number. Had spent hours talking him through things, pushing him past his defenses, refusing to let him hide. Had looked genuinely pleased when he'd promised not to disappear. But that didn't mean, it couldn't mean. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're overthinking. I can sense it from here. V. Despite himself, he laughed out loud. He texted back one-handed, probably illegally. How did you get this number? Marcus gave it to me. Also, you're probably texting while driving. Stop that. Are you always this bossy? Yes. It's part of my charm. Drive safe. He pocketed the phone, but he was smiling for the next 20 miles. Lily was waiting on his ex-mother-in-law's porch when he pulled up, vibrating with the barely contained energy of a child who'd been promised a surprise. She launched herself at him the moment he got out of the car, nearly knocking him over. Daddy, you're back. Did you bring it? Did you bring the surprise? Maybe. He hugged her tight, breathing in the smell of her strawberry shampoo and the particular sweetness of 7-year-old energy. Did you miss me? So much. Grandma let me help bake cookies and we watched 3 movies and I built the best blanket fort ever, but then it fell down and I got sad. But then Grandma said we could rebuild it even better. She pulled back, studying his face with unsettling intensity. You look different. Different how? Less sad. She said it simply, matter-of-factly. Your eyes look less sad. The observation made his chest tight. I had a good weekend, Bug. With Uncle Marcus? And his family. They say hi. Did you see Aunt Vanessa? Ethan blinked. You know Vanessa? Uncle Marcus showed me pictures. She's really pretty and really rich, and she runs a whole company. Lily's eyes went wide. Did you meet her? Is she nice? Yeah, I met her, and yeah, she's nice. Does she have a boyfriend? What? Why would you ask that? Lily shrugged with the baffling logic of children. Uncle Marcus said she needs to find someone who's not boring. Are you boring, Daddy? Apparently not boring enough. He grabbed the stuffed goat from the car. Here, your surprise. Lily's face lit up like Christmas morning. A goat? I love him. What's his name? He doesn't have one yet. You get to name him. Professor Fluffybottom. Wow, that's very specific. He looks like a professor, and his bottom is fluffy. She hugged the goat to her chest. Thank you, Daddy. This is the best surprise ever. They said goodbye to Lily's grandmother, who gave Ethan the same searching look everyone seemed to give him lately, like they were checking to see if he was actually okay or just performing okay. He must have passed the test because she smiled and told him to take care of himself. In the car, Lily chattered nonstop about her weekend, the cookies, the movies, the blanket fort disaster and triumph, a complicated story about a neighbor's cat that may or may not have been embellished. Ethan listened, really listened, instead of just nodding while his mind was somewhere else. Daddy? Lily said as they pulled into their apartment parking lot. Yeah, Bug. I'm glad you're less sad. He looked at her in the rearview mirror. Me too. Their apartment felt smaller than he remembered, more quiet. Lily immediately disappeared into her room to introduce Professor Fluffybottom to her other stuffed animals, leaving Ethan alone with the silence and the evidence of his barely functional life. Dishes in the sink from before he left. Laundry in piles that might be clean or dirty, hard to tell at this point. Mail stacked on the counter, mostly bills and credit card offers and catalogs for furniture he couldn't afford. He'd left this place Friday feeling like he was drowning. Now, standing here after a weekend of warmth and connection, and people who saw him clearly and didn't look away, the contrast was almost painful. His phone buzzed. Vanessa. You made it back. Yeah. Lily loves the goat, named it Professor Fluffybottom. That's an incredible name. She sounds amazing. She is. Currently introducing the professor to the rest of the stuffed animal faculty. Obviously, that's proper protocol. Ethan found himself smiling at his phone like an idiot. He moved to the kitchen, started dealing with dishes because he needed something to do with his hands. Another text. How are you feeling? About being back? He thought about lying, about defaulting to the automatic fine that had been his shield for months. Then he remembered the promise he'd made. Honest answer? Apartment feels lonely after your family's house. But I'm not spiraling, just adjusting. That's normal. Loneliness isn't the same as giving up. When did you get so wise I'm not wise? I'm just further along in the same process you're starting. He finished the dishes, moved to the laundry. Sorted clean from dirty, started a load. Simple mechanical tasks that made the space feel more manageable. Lily emerged from her room, Professor Fluffybottom clutched under one arm. Daddy, can we have pancakes for dinner? It's 4 p.m. Breakfast for dinner. You said we could do that sometimes. She had him there. Okay, pancakes for dinner. With chocolate chips? Don't push it. Please? I'll help make them. And because his daughter was looking at him with those enormous, hopeful eyes, and because he'd spent a weekend learning that saying yes to connection was better than saying no out of habit, he agreed. They made pancakes together in their tiny kitchen. Lily stood on a stool, helping pour ingredients and getting flour absolutely everywhere. She insisted on adding just a few chocolate chips, which turned into approximately half a bag. The kitchen became a disaster zone of batter and eggshells and spilled milk. It was perfect. They ate at their small table, just the two of them, pancakes that were slightly burnt on the edges and too sweet in the middle, orange juice in cups that didn't match. Daddy? Lily said, syrup on her chin. Can we do this more? Make pancakes? Be together like this. Happy. She swung her legs under the table. I like when you're happy. Something in Ethan's throat felt tight. Yeah, Bug. We can do this more. After dinner, after the dishes, after Lily's bath, after 3 stories and 2 glasses of water and 1 more trip to the bathroom, Ethan finally collapsed on his couch in the quiet apartment. His phone showed 3 missed calls from his sister, 2 texts from Marcus asking if he'd survived the drive, and 1 from Vanessa. Remember, bad days don't erase progress. You're doing fine. He texted back, How do you know I need to hear that right now? Because I've been where you are. The first night back is always the hardest. Is this what you do? Just read people's minds from a distance? It's a gift. Also basic pattern recognition. He smiled despite the exhaustion pulling at him. Thank you. Again. Still. Always. Stop thanking me. Start sleeping. Big day tomorrow. The interview. Right. He'd almost forgotten in the chaos of pickup and pancakes and Professor Fluffybottom's introduction to society. Tuesday morning arrived faster than Ethan wanted. He dropped Lily at school, where she informed her teacher very seriously that her daddy had brought her a professor from Massachusetts. Then he drove home, changed into clothes that hopefully said competent professional instead of disaster human in disguise, and waited for the phone to ring. At exactly 2 p.m., it did. Cassie Reynolds was everything Marcus had promised, sharp, direct, but not unkind. She walked him through the position, digital strategy director for Morrison & Park, a mid-sized firm that handled everything from tech startups to established brands trying to figure out social media. The role would mean client management, team leadership, strategy development. Real work. Important work. Marcus spoke very highly of you, Cassie said. Mentioned you'd been through some challenges recently, but that your strategic thinking was some of the best he'd seen. That's Generous of him. Is it untrue? Ethan paused. No, I am good at what I do. I just haven't done it in a while. Why not? And there it was. The moment where he could deflect, minimize, perform the sanitized version. Instead, he heard Vanessa's voice in his head. The strongest thing you can do is admit when you're not okay. My business partner embezzled from our company, Ethan said. About $200,000 over a year. When I found out, the company collapsed under the financial strain and legal complications. My fiancée left. I spent the next 8 months basically just surviving. He took a breath. I'm not proud of checking out for that long, but I'm ready to check back in now. The silence on the other end lasted long enough to make him sweat. That's remarkably honest, Cassie said finally. Is that a problem? The opposite, actually. Most people would have given me some corporate speak about pursuing other opportunities or taking time to recalibrate. She sounded almost amused. I appreciate directness. Means I don't have to guess what I'm working with. They talked for 45 minutes about his experience, his approach to client relationships, his thoughts on where digital marketing was heading, about his availability and salary expectations, and whether he'd be comfortable managing a team again. By the time they hung up, with a promise that she'd be in touch within a week, Ethan felt wrung out, but hopeful. He texted Marcus first. Interview done. Went well, I think. She didn't hang up on me, told you. You're going to crush this. Then Vanessa. Survived the interview. Didn't completely embarrass myself. I never doubted you. Proud of you for showing up. It's just a phone call. It's you choosing to move forward instead of staying stuck. That's huge. He stared at her message for a long moment, feeling something shift in his chest. When had anyone's opinion started mattering this much? When had her words specifically started landing with the weight of something that felt like more than friendship? The week that followed was strange. Not bad strange, just different. Ethan found himself actually living instead of just going through motions. He called his sister back, had a real conversation instead of the usual 5-minute check-in. She asked how he was doing, and he told her the truth, that he was struggling but working on it, that he'd spent a weekend with Marcus's family and it had helped. About time, she'd said. I've been worried about you. I know. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Just don't disappear like that again. He started cooking actual meals again instead of rotating through the same 3 frozen dinners. Started going to the park with Lily after school instead of defaulting to screen time. Started returning emails and texts instead of letting them pile up in an overwhelming mountain of social obligation. And he texted Vanessa. Not constantly, they were both busy, but regularly enough that it became a thing. She'd send him articles about marketing trends with commentary that was usually hilarious and occasionally brutal. He'd respond with observations about parenting that made her laugh. She told him about difficult board meetings and demanding clients. He told her about Lily's increasingly elaborate Professor Fluffybottom backstory. She's decided he has a PhD in advanced snuggling, Ethan texted Wednesday night. That's a very specialized field, Vanessa replied. Competitive program. Apparently he graduated top of his class from Cuddle University. Obviously. He has that look about him. Thursday afternoon, Cassie called back. They wanted to bring him in for an in-person interview. Next Tuesday, 10 a.m., meet with the partners and the team he'd potentially be leading. This is good, Cassie said. They don't waste time on in-person meetings unless they're serious. After he hung up, Ethan sat in his car in the school parking lot. He'd just picked up Lily, trying to process what was happening. A real job. A real opportunity. The possibility of stability and structure and something that looked like the future instead of just survival. Daddy, why are you smiling weird? Lily asked from the back seat. I might have a job interview next week. Is that good? Yeah, Bug, that's good. Will you have to wear a tie? Probably. You look funny in ties. Thanks for that. She giggled and the sound filled the car like sunlight. He texted Vanessa. They want me to come in person. Next Tuesday. Her response was immediate. Ethan. That's amazing. I'm terrified. Good. Means you care. You're going to kill it. What if I don't? Then you don't. But that doesn't change the fact that you showed up, that you tried, that you're choosing to move forward. The outcome matters less than the choice. He read her message 3 times, letting the words settle. Thank you. For believing I could do this when I couldn't, I just reminded you what was already there. You did the actual work. That night, after Lily was asleep, Ethan pulled out the note Vanessa had left under his door. Bad days don't erase progress. He stuck it to his bathroom mirror where he'd see it every morning. The weekend passed in a blur of normal life: grocery shopping, laundry, a birthday party for one of Lily's classmates that involved far too much sugar, and a bounce house that seemed structurally questionable. Sunday evening, Ethan found himself actually planning for the week ahead instead of just dreading it. Monday night, he tried on every combination of shirt and tie he owned, finally texting a photo to Marcus with the message, "Which one says competent adult?" Marcus replied, "The blue one. Also burn the yellow tie." Seriously. Then Vanessa, "Marcus is right about the yellow tie. Also, you look good. Stop overthinking. Did Marcus send you this photo? We have a group chat about you. It's very active. That's horrifying. That's friendship. Get used to it." Tuesday morning arrived with all the weight and terror Ethan had anticipated. He dropped Lily at school early. She made him promise to text her how it went, which was both adorable and added pressure he didn't need. He drove to downtown Boston through traffic that seemed designed to test his blood pressure. Morrison and Park occupied the 8th floor of a building that looked expensive in the subtle way that actually expensive things do. Glass and steel and minimalist furniture that probably cost more than his car. The receptionist smiled, offered coffee, directed him to a conference room with a view that showcased the city in late October glory, all gray sky and buildings that looked important. Cassie met him there, shook his hand, made small talk that helped his pulse settle from panic attack to merely extremely nervous. Then the partners arrived. 2 men and a woman, all probably in their 50s, all carrying the particular energy of people who'd seen every trick in the book and weren't easily impressed. For 90 minutes, they grilled him about his approach to digital strategy, how he'd handle difficult clients, his thoughts on emerging platforms, and whether they were worth the investment, about his previous work, his successes, and more pointedly, his failures. "Tell us about the company that folded," one of the partners said. Thomas, Ethan thought his name was. "What happened there?" Ethan could feel the room's attention sharpen. "My business partner embezzled funds over the course of a year," he said. "I trusted him, which turned out to be a mistake. The financial damage was too severe to recover from, and the company dissolved." "And what did you learn from that?" It was the kind of question designed to test whether someone could extract value from disaster. "That trust without verification is naive," Ethan said. "That you need financial oversight systems even with people you consider friends. That when something feels wrong, it probably is, and ignoring that instinct costs you." He paused. "And that failure, even catastrophic failure, doesn't have to define you unless you let it." The partners exchanged glances. They asked more questions, walked him through hypothetical scenarios, introduced him to the team he'd be leading, 5 people ranging from mid-20s to early 40s, all looking at him with the particular skepticism of employees evaluating a potential new boss. He answered honestly, admitted when he didn't know something, asked questions of his own about company culture and client relationships and what success looked like in this role. By the time it ended, Ethan's brain felt like soup. "We'll be in touch," Thomas said, shaking his hand. "Probably by end of week," which could mean anything. Ethan drove home in a daze, pulled into his parking lot, and just sat in his car for 10 minutes trying to process what had happened. His phone buzzed. "Vanessa. How did it go?" "I have no idea. Either really well or catastrophically. Can't tell." That's normal. Interviews are terrible at providing real-time feedback. I told them about the embezzlement, about everything. Good. Honesty is always better than performance. What if they think I'm a risk? Then they're not the right fit. But I'm guessing they see what I see. Someone who survived something terrible and came out stronger. He stared at her message, feeling something warm spread through his chest. "Can I call you?" "Always." She answered on the first ring. "Hey," she said, and just the sound of her voice made him feel more grounded. "Hey, I needed to hear a friendly voice. How friendly are we talking? Acquaintance friendly or Vanessa?" "Sorry, deflecting with humor, bad habit." She paused. "Talk to me. How are you actually feeling?" "Exhausted, hopeful, terrified. All of it at once." "That sounds about right." He could hear background noise, people talking, the hum of an office. "Hold on, let me..." Her voice got muffled, then clearer. Okay, I'm in my office now. Private. Keep going. I don't even know what I'm saying. This morning felt impossible. Getting dressed, driving there, walking into that building. Every part of me wanted to turn around and run. But you didn't. No, I kept hearing your voice in my head telling me that showing up was what mattered. Smart voice. You should listen to it more often. Despite everything, he smiled. It's getting harder not to. Silence. Not uncomfortable. Something else. Something that felt like standing at the edge of something important. Ethan, Vanessa said carefully, can I be honest about something? You're always honest. True. But this is... She paused. I've been thinking about you. A lot. More than I probably should, given that we've known each other all of 2 weeks. His heart kicked against his ribs. Vanessa. Todo. Let me finish. Please. She took a breath. I don't do this. Get invested in people. I'm good at business relationships and strategic networking and keeping everyone at arm's length where they can't hurt me or distract me or... Another pause. But with you, it's different. You're different. And I don't know what that means or where it goes or if I'm completely misreading signals, but I needed to say it. Because life's too short to pretend you don't care about things that matter. Ethan sat in his car, phone pressed to his ear, trying to breathe normally. You're not misreading anything, he said quietly. No. No, He struggled for words. I've been falling for the woman who blocked my entrance and refused to let me hide, who sees through every defense I've got and decided I was worth standing beside anyway. Who sends me texts at exactly the moment I need them and makes me believe I can actually do this. This being living, moving forward, all of it. He could hear her breathing on the other end. So what do we do about that? She asked. I have no idea. You're a billionaire CEO. I'm a single dad who's barely getting his life together. You live in Boston. I'm 2 hours away. It's complicated. Most worthwhile things are. Vanessa, I'm not asking you to figure everything out right now, Ethan. I'm just saying I'm here. And whatever this is, I want to see where it goes. If you do. He looked up at his apartment building, at the life he was rebuilding piece by piece, at the future that felt possible again because she'd refused to let him disappear into isolation. Yeah, he said. I do. Okay then. He could hear the smile in her voice. We'll figure it out. Just like that? Just like that. Now go pick up your daughter and tell her about the interview. She's probably been checking her invisible watch all day. He laughed, and it felt like breathing. They talked for a few more minutes, about nothing important, about everything important. When they finally hung up, Ethan sat in his car feeling like the world had shifted on its axis. His phone buzzed again. Marcus, in the group chat he apparently shared with Vanessa. Did you two finally have the conversation, or do I need to intervene? Vanessa replied, stand down, we're adults, we can handle this. Marcus, you're both disasters, I'm staying alert. Ethan added, appreciate the vote of confidence. Marcus, you're welcome. Also, how did the interview actually go? Ethan typed out a response about the questions and the partners and his best guess at how it went. But underneath the words was something else, the awareness that his life was changing, that he was letting it change, that for the first time in months, he wasn't just surviving. He was actually living. And somewhere in Boston, a woman with dark eyes and zero tolerance for his defenses was choosing to stand beside him while he figured out what that meant. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't simple. It was messy and complicated and uncertain. But it was real. And that, Ethan was learning, was worth everything. Thursday afternoon, Cassie called. Ethan was in the middle of helping Lily with homework, a math worksheet that involved word problems about trains traveling at different speeds, which seemed designed to punish both children and parents. His phone lit up with the Boston number, and his stomach dropped. I need to take this, he told Lily. But Daddy, I don't understand why the trains... 2 minutes, Bug. I promise. He stepped into the kitchen, heart hammering. Hello? Ethan, it's Cassie Reynolds. A pause that felt like eternity. The partners would like to make you an offer. The world tilted sideways. What? They were very impressed. Said your strategic thinking was exactly what they need. And your honesty about past challenges actually worked in your favor. Showed character. He could hear papers shuffling. I'm emailing over the formal offer now, but the short version. They want you to start in 3 weeks. Salary is $85,000 base plus performance bonuses, full benefits, 3 weeks vacation to start. Ethan leaned against the counter, trying to process words that felt like they belonged to someone else's life. Ethan, you there? Yeah, sorry, yes, thank you. I need to review everything, but yes, thank you. After they hung up, he stood in his kitchen staring at nothing, feeling like he'd just stepped off a cliff and discovered he could fly. Daddy! Lily appeared in the doorway, Professor Fluffybottom under one arm. Are you okay? You look weird. I got the job. The tie job? Despite everything, he laughed. Yeah, Bug, the tie job. She launched herself at him, and he caught her, spinning her around their tiny kitchen while she shrieked with delight. Professor Fluffybottom went flying, landed in the sink. Neither of them cared. Does this mean we're rich? Lily asked when he finally put her down. It means we're stable. Is that good? Yeah, that's really good. He called Marcus first, who whooped so loudly Ethan had to pull the phone away from his ear. I told you they'd love you. Marcus was practically vibrating through the phone. When do you start? 3 weeks. Perfect. That gives us time to celebrate properly. This weekend you're coming back here. No arguments. Mom's already planning a congratulations dinner. Marcus, I just left there, and now you're coming back to celebrate with people who care about you. Also, Vanessa will be here, not that that matters to you at all. You're shameless. I'm invested in my best friend's happiness, and also my sister's happiness. Shoot me. A pause. You're going to call her, right? Yeah, I'm going to call her. Good. Do it now before you overthink it. Ethan hung up, stared at his phone, pulled up Vanessa's number. His finger hovered over the call button. Before he could chicken out, she called him. I heard, she said immediately. Marcus texted, Ethan, I'm so proud of you. The words hit him harder than expected. I couldn't have done this without everything you said, everything you pushed me to believe. You did the work. I just reminded you it was possible. It's more than that. He sank into a kitchen chair. You saw me when I couldn't see myself. You refused to let me disappear. That's... Vanessa, that's everything. Silence. Then softer. You would have found your way back eventually. Maybe. But it would have taken longer and been a lot lonelier. He could hear her breathing on the other end. Come this weekend, she said. Marcus is already planning some ridiculous celebration. You should be there. I was just there 2 weeks ago. So, come again. Bring Lily if you want. Mom would love to meet her. Plus, Professor Fluffybottom deserves to see his homeland. His homeland is a gift shop off I-90. Close enough. Her voice shifted, got quieter. I want to see you, properly. Not just phone calls and texts. Actual face-to-face time where we can figure out what this is. Ethan's chest felt tight. Yeah, me too. So you'll come? Yeah, we'll come. Friday after school, Ethan loaded a very excited Lily and an extremely portable Professor Fluffybottom into his car, check engine light still on, still ignored, and made the drive back to Massachusetts for the 3rd time in a month. Lily talked the entire way, a running commentary about everything from the trees to the clouds to whether Professor Fluffybottom would make friends with Uncle Marcus's parents' chickens, which apparently now existed in her imagination. Do they actually have chickens? She asked. I don't think so. We should get chickens. We live in an apartment. So, we could get apartment chickens. That's not a thing. It should be. He was smiling when they pulled into the Chen driveway 3.5 hours later. Helen must have been watching because the front door opened before he'd even turned off the engine. You're here, and you brought the little one. Helen was already moving toward them, arms open. Lily, sweetheart, I've heard so much about you. Lily, who could be shy with new people, took one look at Helen's warm face and decided immediate trust was appropriate. Are you Uncle Marcus's mom? I am indeed. Do you have chickens? What? No, honey, no chickens. That's what Daddy said. Lily shot Ethan a told-you-so look. But we should get some. I'll add it to the list. Helen ushered them inside. Come in, come in. Ethan, you look good. Better than last time. New job agrees with you even though you haven't started yet. Marcus appeared, grabbed Ethan in a hug, then immediately crouched down to Lily's level. You must be the famous Lily. Are you Uncle Marcus? Guilty. Daddy says you're his best friend. Daddy's right about some things. Marcus grinned. You want to meet my nephew? He's around here somewhere, probably destroying something. Lily looked at Ethan for permission. He nodded, and she took off with Marcus, Professor Fluffybottom bouncing under her arm. Helen looped her arm through Ethan's. She's darling. She's chaos in human form. All the best ones are. She guided him toward the kitchen. Vanessa's in her old room working. She got in an hour ago. You should go say hi. Should I? Don't play coy. You two have been texting constantly according to Marcus's intelligence reports. Does everyone in this family spy on each other? We prefer staying informed. She pointed toward the stairs. Second door on the right. Tell her dinner's in an hour. Ethan climbed the stairs feeling like a teenager going to pick up a prom date. The second door was slightly ajar. He knocked. Come in? Vanessa sat cross-legged on a bed with a laptop balanced on her knees, wearing jeans and a sweater that looked soft and expensive. Her hair was down, falling past her shoulders. She looked up when he entered, and her whole face changed. Hi, she said. Hi. He stood in the doorway like an idiot. Your mom said to tell you dinner's in an hour. Noted. She closed the laptop, set it aside. You made it. Traffic wasn't bad. That's not what I meant. He stepped into the room. I know. They looked at each other for a long moment. All the easy texting banter, the phone conversations, suddenly felt inadequate for actual face-to-face proximity. This is weird, right? Vanessa said. We should be past the weird stage. We barely know each other. We know each other. She stood, crossed to him. We've just been doing it backwards. Deep emotional honesty first, basic getting to know you stuff later. Is that bad? I don't know. It's definitely not traditional. She stopped a foot away from him. For the record, seeing you in person is better than texts. Yeah? Yeah. She reached out, took his hand. Congratulations. On the job. On showing up. On all of it. Couldn't have done it without... If you say without me, I'm going to hit you. You did the work, Ethan. Stop giving other people credit for your own courage. He looked down at their joined hands. What are we doing here? Honestly, I have no idea. She squeezed his fingers. But I'd like to figure it out, if you would. I have a 7-year-old daughter. I'm aware. I've been receiving regular updates about Professor Fluffybottom's academic career. I live 2 hours away. People have navigated worse distances. I'm a mess. So am I, just better funded. She smiled. Are you trying to talk me out of this? I'm trying to make sure you know what you're getting into. Ethan? She reached up, touched his face. I know exactly what I'm getting into. A relationship with someone real, who doesn't want anything from me except honesty. Someone who sees me as Vanessa instead of Vanessa Sinclair, billionaire entrepreneur. Someone who... She paused. Someone who makes me want to be present instead of just performing. He turned his head, pressed a kiss to her palm. I don't know how to do this. Good. Me neither. We'll figure it out together. Then she kissed him, and it felt like everything clicking into place and falling apart simultaneously. Like coming home and stepping into the unknown. Like the scariest, best thing he'd done in months. When they pulled apart, Vanessa was smiling. Okay, she said. We can work with this. Dinner that night was chaos in the best way. Helen had made enough food to feed a small army. Marcus's dad told embarrassing stories about both his children. Lily and Dylan became immediate best friends, creating an elaborate game involving Professor Fluffybottom, a toy dinosaur, and what appeared to be a heist plot. Ethan sat beside Vanessa, their knees touching under the table. Every so often she'd catch his eye and smile, and he'd feel something warm expand in his chest. So, Helen said during a lull in conversation, when do you start the new job? 3 weeks, November 7th. That's exciting. Scary, but exciting. Terrifying, Ethan admitted. What if I can't do it? What if they made a mistake? Vanessa's hand found his under the table. Then you'll figure it out, same as everyone else. Marcus raised his glass. To Ethan, for finally getting his life together and only slightly falling apart in the process. Gee, thanks. It's a compliment. You were a disaster 3 weeks ago. Now you're just moderately messy. That's progress. They all drank to that, and Ethan found himself laughing. Actually laughing, not the performance version, just genuine amusement at the absurdity of his best friend toasting to his mess. Later, after dinner, after Lily had been tucked into the guest room with Professor Fluffybottom and approximately 7 bedtime stories, the adults migrated to the porch with wine and the comfortable exhaustion of a good day. Marcus's parents had gone to bed. Marcus himself was inside on a work call that apparently couldn't wait, which left Ethan and Vanessa alone in the October darkness, wrapped in blankets against the cold. Your daughter is amazing, Vanessa said. She likes you, told me you're really pretty and probably nice even though you're rich. Vanessa laughed. That's the best character assessment I've gotten in years. She's a good judge of people. Clearly, she chose you as a father. She didn't exactly have a choice in that. She chooses you every day. That's what matters. Vanessa shifted closer. How are you feeling? About everything? Honestly, like I'm waiting for it to all disappear. The job, this, all of it. That's trauma response. Your brain's been in survival mode so long it doesn't trust good things. When did you become a therapist? I'm not. I'm just someone who spent a lot of time in therapy learning these patterns. She took a sip of wine. Give it time. Eventually your brain will catch up to your reality. They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. From inside came the sound of Marcus's voice, animated about something work-related. A dog barked in the distance. The night smelled like wood smoke and approaching winter. Can I tell you something? Ethan said. Always. 3 weeks ago, I was convinced I'd lost everything that mattered, that I'd screwed up so badly there was no coming back from it. He looked at her. You changed that. Not by fixing me or saving me, just by refusing to let me hide from myself. You would have gotten there eventually. Maybe, but you made it possible to get there faster and with less collateral damage. He set down his wine glass. I'm falling in love with you. I know that's fast and probably too honest, and she kissed him, cutting off the spiral of qualifications. I'm falling in love with you too, she said when they broke apart. And you're right. It's fast and probably inadvisable and definitely complicated. But I've spent 30 years being strategic about everything. Maybe this is the thing I don't strategize. What do we do about the logistics? You're in Boston. We figure it out. People do long-distance relationships all the time. Plus, you'll be working in Boston, so you'll be around more. She leaned her head on his shoulder. We don't have to solve everything tonight, Ethan. We just have to decide we want to try. I want to try. Good. So do I. The next morning, Ethan woke to sunlight streaming through the guest room window and the sound of Lily giggling somewhere downstairs. For a moment, he just lay there, breathing in the normalcy of it. The sounds of a house full of people. The smell of coffee and something baking. The absence of the crushing weight that had been his constant companion for months. He found Lily in the kitchen with Helen, both of them covered in flour, apparently making something that involved chocolate chips and questionable structural integrity. Daddy, we're making cookies. Helen says I'm a natural baker. That's what she said about the pancakes, too, Ethan said, kissing the top of her flour-covered head. The child has enthusiasm, Helen said. That counts for a lot. Vanessa appeared in running clothes, hair pulled back, face flushed from exercise. She grabbed water from the fridge, caught Ethan's eye, smiled in a way that made his stomach flip. Morning, she said. Morning. Lily looked between them with the alarming perception of a 7-year-old who just noticed something interesting. Daddy, is Aunt Vanessa your girlfriend? Ethan nearly choked on his coffee. Helen suddenly became very interested in cookie dough. Why would you? Because you smiled at her the way Prince Eric smiles at Ariel, Lily said matter-of-factly. In the movie, The Little Mermaid. When he's in love. Vanessa was trying very hard not to laugh. That's a very specific reference, Ethan managed. So is she. He looked at Vanessa, who shrugged as if to say, your call. Yeah, Bug, she is. Okay, can she come to my birthday party next month? You'll have to ask her. Lily turned to Vanessa with complete seriousness. Will you come to my birthday party? There's going to be a bounce house. I would be honored, Vanessa said. Good. You can sit next to Daddy. She turned back to her cookies, crisis resolved, moving on to more important 8-year-old concerns. Helen caught Ethan's eye, winked. He shook his head, grabbed more coffee, and tried to process how his life had become this in the span of 3 weeks. The weekend passed too quickly. They took Lily and Dylan to a pumpkin patch where the kids got lost in a corn maze and emerged 45 minutes later covered in dirt and triumph. They had another family dinner, more stories, more laughter. Ethan and Vanessa stole moments alone, a walk by the pond, late-night conversations on the porch, small touches that felt like promises. Sunday afternoon, standing by his car, Lily already buckled in and playing with Professor Fluffybottom, Ethan pulled Vanessa aside. I don't want to leave, he said. Then come back next weekend. Is that sustainable? Me driving here every weekend? For now? Yes. She wrapped her arms around his waist. Once you start the job, you'll be in the city during the week anyway. We'll see each other more. This gets easier, not harder. You're very optimistic for someone who claims to be strategic. I'm strategic about things that matter. This matters. She kissed him. Drive safe. Text me when you get home. I'll call you tonight. Vanessa? Yeah? Thank you for everything, for being exactly what I needed when I needed it. Thank you for not running when I blocked the door. He laughed, kissed her again, and got in his car before he could change his mind about leaving. The drive home felt different this time, less like retreating to isolation, more like carrying something good with him. Lily chattered about the weekend, about Helen's cookies and Dylan's dinosaur collection, and whether they could get a dog because Professor Fluffybottom needed a friend. We'll see, Ethan said, which was parent speak for probably not. That means yes, right? That means we'll see. She grinned like she'd won, and maybe she had. The weeks that followed developed their own rhythm. Ethan started his new job on a gray November Monday that felt appropriately dramatic. The first day was overwhelming. New faces, new systems, the particular anxiety of being the new person who everyone was evaluating. But he showed up, answered questions honestly when he didn't know something, asked for help when he needed it, slowly started building relationships with his team. Cassie checked in regularly, making sure he was adjusting okay. The partners seemed pleased. By the end of week 2, Ethan realized he was actually good at this job, that the skills he'd thought he'd lost were just dormant, waiting to be used again. He saw Vanessa 3 or 4 times a week, coffee before work sometimes, dinner when their schedules aligned, weekends at the Chen house, which had become a regular thing, much to Helen's delight and Marcus's smug satisfaction. They learned each other in pieces. Vanessa hated mornings but loved late nights. She stress-baked at 2 a.m. when board meetings went badly. She was terrified of failure but hid it under confidence that looked unshakable. She cried during animated movies but maintained perfect composure during actual crises. Ethan learned to text her good morning before she'd had coffee. Learned that she needed space when work was stressful but wanted company when work was good. Learned that beneath the billionaire entrepreneur was someone just as uncertain about relationships, just as afraid of getting it wrong. Lily met Vanessa regularly now, and the relationship that developed was something Ethan hadn't expected. Genuine and easy, built on mutual respect rather than forced kid-adult cheerfulness. Vanessa talked to Lily like a person, not a child. Lily responded by being herself, which meant occasional brutal honesty and constant questions about everything. Does being a billionaire mean you're rich? Lily asked one Saturday while they were all at the park. Very rich, yes. Could you buy me a pony? Lily, Ethan started. Probably, Vanessa said. But I won't, because ponies are a lot of work and your dad would kill me. What if it's a small pony? Still no. What if... Bug? Leave Vanessa alone about the pony. Lily sighed dramatically, but moved on to planning Professor Fluffybottom's upcoming graduation ceremony, which apparently required elaborate decorations. 4 months after that first weekend, Ethan found himself in a coffee shop near his office, waiting to meet someone he'd been avoiding thinking about for a while. Ryan Mitchell walked in at exactly 2 p.m. Same exhausted single dad energy Ethan recognized from his own mirror 6 months ago. Same forced smile that didn't reach the eyes. Same sense of someone barely holding it together. They'd worked together briefly at Ethan's previous job, lost touch after everything collapsed. But Ryan had reached out last week. Casual message asking how Ethan was doing, whether he'd grabbed coffee sometime. Ethan had almost said no, almost defaulted to the polite deflection he'd perfected over the years. Instead, he'd said yes. "Thanks for meeting," Ryan said, settling into the chair across from him. He looked worse up close. Circles under his eyes, tie slightly askew, the particular weariness of someone fighting a battle nobody could see. "No problem. How've you been?" "I'm fine." The words landed with the weight of a lie Ethan knew intimately. "Yeah," he said carefully, "because you've got the same look I had about 6 months ago. The 'I'm absolutely not fine, but I'll die before admitting it' look." Ryan's expression cracked slightly. "That obvious? To someone who's been there?" "Yeah." They ordered coffee. Ryan asked about the new job, made small talk that felt effortful. Ethan watched him perform the same dance of deflection he'd done for months, and suddenly understood what Vanessa had seen in him that first night on the porch. "What happened?" Ethan asked quietly. "What makes you think—" "Ryan, come on." A long pause, then, "Divorce finalized 3 months ago. Sarah got the house, I got every other weekend with the kids. Lost my job last month, company restructuring, last hired, first fired. Been interviewing, but nothing's panning out." He laughed without humor. "I'm fine, though. Totally fine." "When was the last time you admitted you weren't okay?" Ryan looked at him sharply, and Ethan realized he'd just echoed Vanessa's words verbatim. "I don't need a therapy session." "I'm not offering one. I'm just asking a question." Ethan leaned forward. "Because I spent 8 months telling everyone I was fine while I was actively drowning. And the only reason I'm sitting here now instead of still circling the drain is because someone refused to let me keep lying." "What, some magical friend saved you?" "Something like that." He smiled. "She blocked a doorway and wouldn't let me pass until I admitted I wasn't okay. Made me face everything I'd been hiding from, including myself." "Sounds aggressive." "It was. Also necessary." Ethan took a drink of coffee. "Look, I'm not going to pretend I have all the answers. I'm still figuring this out day by day, but I know what it looks like when someone's where I was. And I know that pretending you're fine when you're falling apart doesn't make you strong. It just makes you alone." Ryan was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know how to not be okay," he said finally. "I've got kids depending on me. I can't just fall apart." "Nobody's asking you to fall apart, just to stop pretending you're not struggling." Ethan pulled out his phone, pulled up Vanessa's contact. "There's someone I want you to talk to. She runs a company, deals with stress and pressure constantly, but she's also honest about when things are hard. I think she could help you see that asking for support isn't weakness." "I don't need—" "Yeah, you do. We all do." He met Ryan's eyes. "I'm going to text you her number, and the number for a therapist my friend recommended, and my number, in case you just need someone who gets it. You don't have to use any of them, but I'm putting them out there, because someone did that for me, and it saved my life." After Ryan left, after the awkward goodbyes and promises to stay in touch that might or might not happen, Ethan sat alone in the coffee shop, staring at his phone. He texted Vanessa. "Just had coffee with a guy who reminded me of where I was 6 months ago." Her response came quickly. "How'd it go?" "I gave him your number." "Hope that's okay." He needs someone to tell him it's possible to not be okay and still be standing. Of course it's okay. This is what we do. We survived, so now we help others survive. Ethan stared at her message, feeling something click into place. This was it. This was what she'd given him. Not rescue, not fixing, but a map back to life. And now he could offer that same map to someone else. He texted back. "I love you. I love you too. See you tonight?" "Yeah, I'll bring dinner." "Perfect. I'll provide the wine and questionable life advice. That's all I need." 6 months after that first weekend, Ethan stood in the Chen family living room surrounded by people he loved, watching Lily blow out candles on a cake that looked like a castle. She'd insisted on a princess theme, but specifically a princess who was also a scientist because regular princesses are boring. Vanessa stood beside him, her hand in his. Marcus was filming on his phone despite Lily's protest that Uncle Marcus was being embarrassing. Helen had made enough food for an army. The house was full of kids and laughter and the particular chaos of a successful birthday party. "Speech," Marcus called out. "Birthday dad speech." That's not a thing, Ethan protested. It is now. Speech! Everyone started chanting, including Lily, who was grinning with frosting on her face. Ethan sighed, raised his voice slightly. Okay, fine. Lily, 8 years ago, you made me a dad, which was terrifying and amazing and the best thing that ever happened to me. This past year, you also reminded me how to be human, how to laugh again, how to show up even when it's hard. Daddy, you're being sappy, Lily stage whispered. I'm allowed to be sappy on your birthday. He squeezed Vanessa's hand. You taught me that asking for help isn't weakness, that letting people see you, really see you, is the bravest thing you can do. So thank you, Bug, for being exactly who you are, and for reminding me to be exactly who I am. Lily launched herself at him for a hug that nearly knocked them both over. The room erupted in applause and laughter. Vanessa was definitely crying, but would deny it if asked. Later, after the party, after the cleanup, after Lily had fallen asleep surrounded by new presents and Professor Fluffybottom, Ethan and Vanessa sat on the porch in the February cold, wrapped in blankets and each other. So, Vanessa said, Marcus told me something interesting today. Should I be worried? Ryan, the guy you had coffee with last year? He got a job, good one, started therapy, called Marcus to say thank you for the introduction to me and for having a friend who bothered to care. Ethan felt warmth spread through his chest. Yeah? Yeah. Said you gave him a way back when he didn't know he needed one. She looked at him. You did for him what I did for you. Refused to let him hide. Learn from the best. Apparently. She shifted to face him. Can I tell you something? Always. A year ago, I was convinced I had everything figured out. Company thriving, bank account healthy, life perfectly organized. But I was lonely. So lonely I didn't even recognize it anymore. She touched his face. Then Marcus dragged me to that weekend gathering, and there you were. This broken, honest, terrified man who saw me as just Vanessa. And I realized I'd been hiding too, just differently. What were you hiding from? Connection. Real connection. The kind that requires vulnerability and honesty and letting someone see you completely. She kissed him softly. You gave me that, same as I gave it to you. So we saved each other? We reminded each other it was possible to be saved. There's a difference. They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars appear in the winter sky. From inside came the sound of Marcus and his dad arguing about something sports-related, Helen laughing, the house full of warmth and life, and people who chose each other daily. I'm moving to Boston, Ethan said suddenly. Vanessa turned to look at him. What? My lease is up in 2 months. Lily loves it here. I'm working in the city anyway. It makes sense. He met her eyes. Unless that's too fast or too much or... It's perfect. She was smiling. It's absolutely perfect. Yeah? Yeah. She kissed him again, deeper this time. I have a house, plenty of room, good school district. We could, if you wanted, we could try this. Actually try it. Not long distance, not weekends. Real life. I have a daughter. I'm aware. I'm kind of in love with both of you. I'm still figuring things out. So am I. We'll figure them out together. She pulled back slightly. Ethan, I'm not asking for perfect. I'm asking for real, for honest, for two imperfect people choosing each other despite all the reasons it's complicated. When you put it like that, is that a yes? That's a yes. She kissed him again, and it felt like coming home and starting over simultaneously. Like every good thing he'd thought he'd lost, returning in a form he didn't expect, but recognized immediately. 2 months later, Ethan stood in a new apartment, technically Vanessa's house, but she'd insisted it was their house now, surrounded by boxes and furniture that needed assembling. Lily raced through rooms with Professor Fluffybottom, claiming territories and planning decorations. Marcus showed up with a truck full of the last of Ethan's stuff and a pizza the size of a small car. Can't believe you're actually doing this, Marcus said, dropping a box labeled kitchen stuff probably on the counter. Can't believe you're surprised. You've been pushing this for months. True, but I'm allowed to be proud of my matchmaking skills. He grabbed a slice of pizza. Seriously though, you look good, man. Happy. Actually happy. Not performing happy. I am happy. Terrified but happy. That's basically the same thing when you're doing something that matters. Vanessa appeared from upstairs, covered in dust, hair in a messy ponytail. Lily wants to know if we can paint her room purple. Like light purple or like grape purple. Apparently Professor Fluffybottom demands it. Ethan laughed. Tell the professor we'll compromise on lavender. You're a tough negotiator. I learned from the best. She kissed him, not caring that Marcus was right there making gagging noises. That night, after Marcus left, after the pizza was gone, after Lily was asleep in her new purple, technically lavender, room, Ethan and Vanessa collapsed on their couch in their living room in their house. We did it, Vanessa said, head on his shoulder. Did what? Built something real. Out of honesty and vulnerability and refusing to let each other hide. You make it sound poetic. It is poetic. It's also messy and complicated and probably going to be hard sometimes. She looked up at him. But it's ours. Built on actual foundation instead of performance. Ethan thought about the man he'd been a year ago. Isolated, drowning, convinced he had to carry everything alone. Thought about a woman blocking a doorway, refusing to let him hide. Thought about every conversation, every honest moment, every time he'd chosen connection over isolation. You know what I learned? He said. What? The strongest people aren't the ones who hide pain best. They're the ones brave enough to let others stand beside them while healing. Where'd you hear that? Some bossy billionaire told me once. She smiled. She sounds smart. She is. Changed my life by refusing to let me disappear. You would have found your way back. Maybe, but it would have taken longer and hurt more, and I wouldn't be here, in this house, with this life, with you. Vanessa was quiet for a moment. You know what that woman learned from you? What? That asking for help doesn't make you weak. That letting someone see you completely is the bravest thing you can do. That love isn't about perfect. It's about showing up honestly and choosing each other daily. They sat in comfortable silence, the house settling around them. Somewhere upstairs, Lily was probably still awake, plotting Professor Fluffybottom's next adventure. Outside, Boston continued its evening routine. Cars passing, people living their lives, the world spinning on. And inside this house, two imperfect people who'd found each other in the mess of honesty built something that mattered. Not because it was easy or simple or perfectly planned, but because they'd chosen to stop hiding, to let each other in, to believe that connection was worth the risk of being seen. A year ago, Ethan Cole had been a man convinced that isolation was strength. Now he knew better. Now he knew that the bravest thing you can do is admit you're not okay. That asking for help is courage, not weakness. That letting someone stand beside you while you heal is what makes you strong. And that sometimes the person blocking your path isn't stopping you from moving forward. They're opening the door to everything you thought you'd lost.